Okay, it's 6:09. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sarah, can you do roll call?
President Bucher,
Here.
trustee Barheit,
Here.
trustee Brooks. Here. Trustee Pulley,
Here.
trustee Faber,
Here.
trustee Hopkins.
Here.
And trustee Gant.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Agendas were posted Thursday, May 29th, 2025.
Great. Trustees, are there any changes to the agenda sequence?
Yes. I'd like to move 6.1 to after public comments on 7.
I was actually going to ask to move number 7 in front of number 6 completely.
Oh, yeah, same thing.
So I will make a motion to move public comments above president's comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Okay, we will go into public comments. Mr. Woodkey, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
James Woodkey, 22416 88th Street, Salem, Wisconsin. I think that it's a good idea that you're making an effort to try and clean up the public comments. I would have maybe suggested, instead of letting it fester for a week or two on social media with people coming out with all kinds of conspiracy theories and everything else you could possibly think of, might have been a good idea to possibly try and include the public in what they'd like to see, possibly take, a little bit of time with that or look into it more instead of making it seem like it's a rush and let's get this in before the public gets a chance to figure out what's going on. That's not quite what I really think is happening, but that's the perception out there. And like with most of the problems that come up in the village, they don't get addressed with information, and that leads to people making things up or saying what they believe, whether it's right or wrong. And it would just be nice if there was a little bit of a PR campaign to try and encourage the public to know what's going on and give them facts and information.
Thank you. Joshua Cobalt, I think he signed this.
Yeah.
Okay. Kim Roper.
Hi, Kim Roper at 12428 250th Avenue, Trevor, Wisconsin. I come tonight to talk to you about the land swap on Rock Lake as a lakefront owner and as a park board commissioner. When this originally started, it was supposed to be the lot on the road. Then the lot got switched to the lot behind. At this point in time, the park board cannot utilize that lot. We walked the lot with the slope, the grade, and the trees. Other than green space, it is no value to the park board. And as a citizen, I say, don't sell property that with our lakefront property that we have, cattails or not, for the other party. I suggest that the town give the Honeckers a long-term lease. So whether 30 years from now, 50 years from now, a new owner of the property, they're going to want access to the lake. So I think our town board would be very smart, instead of it costing the citizens to pay property taxes on another half acre, why don't we make a little money on a lease and give that property owner the right to put their pier in? We have nothing against that, but we are against the lot swap. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Eric Nielsen, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Eric Nielsen, 12403 Rock Lake Road in Trevor. I'm here in regards to the land swap proposal. Earlier today, I had sent you an email covering points in detail. I will not go through all of them now in the interest of time. I basically have 4 key points that I want to leave with you, and I hope you consider as you review this resolution today. The first one is that the transparency around this transaction has not been adequate from a public viewpoint. There's been, closed session discussions. There's been internal staff discussions. There's just been a lack of transparency in terms of understanding what the objective is here from the village viewpoint. I ask that you improve on that. Similarly, the process has been confusing. It's been alluded that, there's been different CSMs in front of the Plan Commission. It's very hard for the Plan Commission to follow. It was very hard for the public to follow exactly what we're talking about here in terms of parcels and intent. Please try to improve that process. The last thing on this point is that in no part of the discussion has there been anything regarding the zoning. This is a C2 parcel in the Honaker property. It's 5 acre minimums. You're trying to break out a ½ acre lot. I don't understand what's going on and how this procedurally would work. Similarly, the park area is a PR1 for public recreation. How is this all going to fit together? And how is the public going to be involved in terms of any zoning changes that might be related to this? And this sort of goes back to the second key point, is that there's no obvious benefit to the village. As Ms. Roper just explained, the park sees no value in this land. What's in it for us? It's unclear. On the other side of this from my opinion, this is setting a bad precedent. You're taking a situation where there's been trespassing on village property for 19 years. And now there's no repercussions for that. There's no fines. There's no discussion of peer removal. It's actually on the other end of the spectrum. Well, let's find a way to swap and accommodate the 19-year problem. This just is not passing the reasonable man test. Similarly, from a financial transaction viewpoint, why is the village swapping what appears to be a very valuable piece of land to the Honekers for something that really has no value to the village? It's not developable. It's not additive to the Wilson Runyard Park. And there's nothing in here that adds value to the village. In fact, it's all going the other way, where should the Honekers get this property, it's going to have an obvious increase in their property value. There's going to be a tremendous enhancing effect on their 8 acres by having 200 feet of lakefront property. I mean, clearly they want access to the lake. They've been having their pier in there for 19 years. This is a value enhancer for the property. And that's great if the village gets something out of it. More pointedly, the taxpayers get something out of it. The last point I want to make is in regards to this property was the cornerstone for an effort last year to bring in a lake district around Rock Lake. The reason why this property was absolutely critical to that effort was because of its 8 acres, which just overweighted everything compared to the smaller lots that are typically a quarter to a ½ acre. Please understand the implications of providing riparian rights to this property, the 8 acre Honaker property. It has an undue influence in terms of how the Wisconsin state statutes allow people to achieve a 51% threshold to bring in a lake district. The lake district itself had numerous problems, but the single biggest one is that this 8 acre Honaker property was brought in to basically overweight and smother the other smaller lot owners on the lake. I just ask that as you review the resolution in front of you tonight, you look at it from the benefit of all tax holders and not just one individual property owner. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Arnold, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Steve Arnold, 12415 257th Avenue, Trevor, Wisconsin. And I think these two men ahead of me put it very well. Everything seems to be undercover. I hear bits and pieces. It doesn't look good. you talk to one person. I spoke to Bill Barheit about something and, you know, followed through with it and try calling here and I don't get an answer. But I think that, really you're giving away, you're setting a precedence here that can never be turned back. If you do go ahead with this proposal. You know, we like and use our property, the park property. We want it improved with a pier, a well-built pier, so we can access the water, fish, everything that we've done. My family has done for the past 28 years. It's just really, again, as these folks stated, you know, the information isn't getting out there. If you don't hear a whisper, you have to come here and dig, and then, you know, there doesn't seem to be much. You know, no one wants to answer questions, it seems. Truthfully, I have to say that I saw this going so downhill since 2 elections back that I didn't vote for any of you. And I used to work here as an election worker from start to finish for free as a public service. But when I see all this bickering going around and, you know, so-and-so is doing this and they did that, it's like, you know, the same are eating their small. You know, it's time to do something right for the citizens, stand up, be open, be vocal, ask for input. We'd like to save that park. And we're not for selling off land around the edge. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Douglas Hannah, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Douglas Hannah at 12647 254th Court. My house is located literally across the street from the park in question. I know exactly where this is at. I am completely opposed to the township basically giving away the property of the riparian rights to Mr. Honaker. Mr. Honaker's lived there for 15, 20 years. He's had a pier there for a long time. Why hasn't the township done anything about it? On the map, I didn't even realize there's a pedestrian access easement required by law. What is going to happen to that easement if you give that property to him? Is that easement going to stay there? Or are we giving away public easement as well? Basically, Mr. Honaker gets to move his property from on a sale from Lake View to Lakefront. That is going to substantially increase the value of his property when he goes and puts it up for sale. Why hasn't he done anything about this in the last 19 years that he's lived there? Why all of a sudden not? Why all of a sudden this push to get this property switched over? Yes, I agree that would there be a small and I mean, I explicitly mean small value in extending the Runyard Way Park to the edge of the forest? Yeah, but no way whatsoever incommensurate to the value of the property of given that you guys are basically giving away my tax dollars to him. I value wetlands. I value outdoor access to park property. I do not feel it is in the best interest of us giving away our property, communal property, to a private individual in perpetuity. If the township would like to enter into a lease agreement as previously offered, I'm okay with that. At least the township is getting some value out of that, but it needs to be a finite term. It needs to not be a perpetuity, and it needs to not be until the 12th person of the king of England has died, it needs to be a set time frame in years. Renewable, of course. But they need to be, you know, if you want us to give them a lease, fine, give them a lease. 5-year leases with options for renewal. And public access still allowed. He can put his dock there, he can launch his boat, he can enjoy the lake just like I do when I walk across the street and try and put my canoe in, even though the boat launch has been out of commission for 3 years now. That's another matter. But why should I lose my right to using to that property simply because we want to give it away? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go into number 6, president's comments. Discussion and possible action on the following. First, I would like to say a few things. This coming weekend, June 7th and 8th, there is free fishing at all of the state parks. There's no sticker needed for adults or children. Anything I'm missing?
It's free fishing on any lake.
On any lake.
And you can go to
On
the
any
parks
lake.
without a sticker on all the Wisconsin state parks. It's a free weekend.
Yes. All right. And at the risk of more backlash, I figured I would say a few more things. I understand that I and this board may not always make decisions that everyone agrees with or as quickly as you'd like. Whether that's our staff, the public, or even amongst us board members. Sitting up here often means having to make difficult decisions that are not popular, and I recognize that I haven't always gotten it right, and I acknowledge that. At our May 7th meeting, I made a mistake. I should have allowed you, Kevin, to talk. And I regret that. We're all human, and like anyone else, I'm not immune to making mistakes. I've been dealing with some health issues the last few months, and I'm still trying to work through that. And this is not an excuse. However, that night I was feeling particularly terrible. But I let the situation get the better of me, and for that, I sincerely apologize, and I take full responsibility. I also want to be very clear about something that has been circulating. I did not, nor would I ever, ask anyone to make threats or speak on my behalf in a threatening way. That is not how I was raised and is not how I conduct myself. This is a very difficult position and to hold, and it's also been very difficult since I was elected the first time. But what I know is I ran out of concern for many that were being treated unfairly. And I came into this with good intentions, and still to this day, I believe that, and I try my best. And I know that many have called for my resignation. The time, effort, and constant personal attacks are not worth the money this position pays. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I honestly wanted to help my community. And despite everything, I still care deeply about this village and the people in it. That's why I've shown up even on the hardest days to do this job. That's all I have to say. So Kevin, I apologize. That's that. We'll go into 6.1, public comment policy. So at our last meeting, we made some changes.
Madam President, I'd like to ask for an additional change to that policy. And that is the item where it talks about the length of a citizen's comments total, 45 minutes. I'd like to see that removed, and we'll take citizens' comments as long as what it takes given 3 minutes apiece, and speaking only once. Not repetitive. So once you're up there, 3 minutes to talk. And as time goes on, if all of a sudden you remember something and you want to talk again, come to the next meeting.
I would agree, the removal of that 45-minute threshold should come out of there. Also, I guess at the same time, don't know that we really have had any problem other than the sign up time. And I think we could do this with just changing that. You have to be here before it starts to sign up. I don't know that we need to go through the rest of these personally. That's, I mean, because if you review problems to create the need for rules, that's the only problem, if you want to call it that, that we had.
Sign up before the meeting starts. That's been our rule all along.
Well,
It's been our practice.
been our practice, but not always.
Well, I have no trouble with moving to 45 minutes. I mean, generally, it doesn't take that long. We've had some issues that you would think may have, but it doesn't. Everybody has a right to speak. But just sign up before the meeting starts, that's all.
All right, so if we go through these again one by one. First bullet point, everybody okay with?
Yes.
Yep.
Rules of decorum, that is just a normal, everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Sign up sheet, everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Public may not alter after the clerk has handed the sign up sheet to the presiding officer.
Yes.
Yes. Limited to 3 minutes per speaker.
Yes.
Great. Public comment in total shall not last longer than 45 minutes.
Remove.
No.
Who's in favor of it being removed? Okay, all right. Ramsey, can you strike that? Public comment should be directed to the board as a whole.
Yes.
Yes.
Public comment shall be respectful and avoid repetition and shall be free from personal attacks, defamation, and other derogatory or inflammatory comments.
Yes.
Ramsey, can you give some context to that, please? On what that is?
Your code speaks, one of its early chapters speaks to public business being conducted in an orderly manner. And for many municipalities, they have basic rules of decorum that indicate, and the idea is to keep to hear from the public without having public attacks, you know, so that we're focused on topics either that evening, or even if it's not a topic for that evening, that's removed, so that we have some level of dignity and decorum during the meeting, and so that it doesn't become a shouting match. I'm aware of one or two communities that people are sometimes at each other's throat physically. You don't want that in your community. So that's the spirit of that rule.
So I just want to jump in here and say, you know, if we were to say that avoid repetition, well, tonight we heard from a lot of people who are around and in part of the Rock Lake, and by each one of those people getting up here and saying what they are or not in favor of, it helps give take the temperature, if you will, of the community. That, hey, we have, you know, all against and nobody here necessarily for. Helps maybe us to understand what the public is looking for, which was public involvement. That's one way for public involvement. So I really have a problem with the, you know, avoiding repetition. If 100 people want to come and say they're against something, I'd like to know all 100 are against it, quite honestly.
And I look at that as, I think avoid repetition is when they're talking, not to keep saying the same things over and over. So I guess.
And the rule is stated with respect to the repetition, it's framed as should. So certainly you can hear repetition all you like. It doesn't prevent anyone providing comment from repeating. It's a should. And depending on the nature of the meeting and the hour and the like, you could the presiding officer can certainly remind them. We've heard that, but it's only a should as opposed to something more mandatory, that you don't want to have personal attacks. You don't want to have defamation or other inflammatory type comments that don't help the public business and the governing body make its decisions.
Mhm. Okay, so how does everyone feel about this, leaving it in?
Yes.
Yes.
I would strike avoid repetition.
I'm okay with striking avoid repetition.
Right.
Same, by the same person.
We can just take it out. Should be respectful and shall be free from personal attacks. That sound okay?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds okay.
You too?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Got that, Ramsey?
Yep.
Great. To ensure order and a dignified presentation of ideas, comments, or questions, civility shall be maintained at all times, which means no jeering, shouting, or laughing at somebody or something in a mocking or scornful way. There shall be no public outbursts, etc.
Leave it.
I'm for- yeah, yeah.
I think this is kind of like what you were just talking about, Ramsey, when people were fighting in the anyways, how does everyone feel about that statement?
Leave it.
Leave it?
Yep.
Okay. The board, committee, or commission may not debate with a citizen who is addressing the members of the body, nor may the body take action on any item raised during public comment. That is just a standard.
I'd like to see that raised up towards the front. Because I think there are a number of residents who don't understand why we're sitting up here just looking at them.
Yeah.
As opposed to engaging in a conversation with them.
I was thinking the same thing, like when you get up here and you say like any questions, we can't answer during public comment.
Right.
So I think it should go up under the public comment should be directed to the board as a whole.
Yep.
Agree.
Okay. All right. So I think that's it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the public comment rules. With the subsequent changes as mentioned tonight.
I'll second that.
Point of order, please. You're not addressing the last paragraph. Just to have a bullet point.
Okay, thank you. In order to maintain, thank you, you're correct. In order to maintain order and complete the business of the body, the presiding chair clerk may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when statements are too lengthy or otherwise contrary to these rules. Order a person to stop speaking or request an individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe these rules. Request the assistance of law enforcement if a person interferes with a meeting or becomes disorderly such that their conduct interferes with orderly progress of the meeting, or call a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action.
Leave it.
I'm not comfortable with its entirety. There's pieces in there that make sense, but there's also pieces in there. If officers have to get involved, I don't think we need a policy for it. That would be clear to the room. And it seems a bit overbearing.
So what parts do you not like?
I don't know that we have to request the assistance of law enforcement. If the person appears at the meeting or becomes disorderly such that their conduct interferes with other progress of the meeting. I think that just doesn't even have to be in writing. That's that naturally occurs, and we've all seen TV.
You're saying that's common sense?
Yes.
We don't teach common sense.
Yeah,
And
we're-
not
we
everyone
don't
has
teach
common
it.
sense.
Right, but at the same time, I don't know that we have.
Well,
to
if
have
you're
everything-
agreeing with me that not everyone has common sense, put it in there so people can read it and understand it.
Yeah, that doesn't help anything.
Well, that way they understand before they speak. And if they decide to come here to cause. Lose their decorum, I guess.
That same thing could happen in a grocery store,
True.
and I don't have to read something to buy groceries.
I don't think it's that offensive to have it in there. I just think that, and I've been in meetings when the officers have been to walk some people out.
Here,
Yes.
and we didn't have this in place, did we?
We didn't. I guess I'm just wondering why it bothers you so much.
It seems demeaning to the public to put that in there. It'd just be an automatic thing.
I
we would
think
do.
it's personally, you can get up here, you can say what you can say, but you can do it.
It's like it's a threat. I don't know that we need to
I
do
don't
a threat.
think that's,
Can we ask for a reason, again,
Yeah.
of
the people,
what,
if they think it's a threat?
I don't know. I don't know that we've ever done that.
Can we ask them to show their hands if they feel like it's a threat?
Well, it's certainly, the language isn't meant to be a threat, like many of both between the bullets and these final comments, a lot of this is already flowing from your codes and your practices. The idea in putting this, as I understood what the board was trying to accomplish, the idea was to put these practices into writing so that this board and the public and all of your boards and committees, to the extent this is applicable, that they all knew those proverbial rules of the game. As a technical matter, I mean, fortunately, this doesn't ever really happen. As a practical matter, I think everybody understands that if somebody is going to be so unruly as to cause disorderly conduct, then officers in the room will have the authority to detain them and make an arrest if needed or if necessary. So the purpose of this is solely to just put onto paper what appeared to be the common practices, both in this community and other communities. But it's your call whether you like, if you don't like the language, you pull it. It's not
So
going
if we,
to stop a law enforcement officer from detaining someone or making an arrest if the circumstances warrant it.
with or without this language, that doesn't change. It doesn't preclude an officer from doing what needs to be done.
Correct. And the opposite side of that coin, and the other side of that coin, sorry, is simply that you're just trying to bring transparency to what are the rules.
I'm for leaving it.
I don't have any trouble with it.
Well, he doesn't say they get arrested. It just says they'll interfere.
Correct. The assessment of whether somebody is committing disorderly conduct and needs to be detained or arrested is purely a law enforcement decision. The board, presiding officer can certainly point out that someone is engaged in disruptive, disorderly conduct. But beyond pointing that out, it's really in the hands of the officers to conduct their assessment, whether it rises to the level that they need to be detained and or arrested.
So with this paragraph, the way I see it is if the board were to decide that somebody needed to be removed, then the officers would have to act.
Yeah, the officers would have to act if the circumstances warranted it.
But it's not the board, it would be the president or the clerk. Because they're running the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it's equivalent to, because it's not, but again, the public records law doesn't speak to making public input mandatory. But the public or the open meetings law will certainly say that to the extent that there's going to be public input, it has to be orderly The same goes for if someone wants to record or video a meeting, they may do so as long as they're not being disruptive or disorderly. So there's no harm in having a policy state that. And a presiding officer or the body, in order to conduct an orderly meeting, can certainly point it out that someone is being disorderly, but the actual decision to make a detention or to make an arrest is in the hands of the officer.
So I guess with that, my interpretation and looking at some of the things in our repetitions of the bullet points above, I'm in favor of striking the entire in order to maintain paragraph.
I disagree. I disagree because if we don't have it, nothing up front, if somebody is being severely out of line and disorderly and we can't even conduct business, I should have the option to remove them. And I think that's a simple thing. And if we don't have it in there and then it happens, then it's going to be again that we didn't have it in the rules. So
I don't think you have to have it to be able to ask for law enforcement. So not, like if we didn't have that in there and somebody was disorderly, we have to put up with it. No, we can ask
law
for.
enforcement's not always here for every meeting. That's the thing.
This also means us too.
Sure.
So I think this is called just be a decent human being. You can get up here and you can say anything you want, but just say it respectfully and in a human manner. That's it. That's what I think it says.
We could give the people of the village a chance to continue to act in proper manner, strike that paragraph. And if we have an incident, add it, if we think we need to add it, but we still have that power that as human beings in a room together with under the flag, that if we need law enforcement assistance, we can get it. So that's the.
Okay, well, we'll go down the line. To strike parts or any of this, Billy, how do you feel?
I think it's okay, because this relates to us too. If one of us gets unruly, he can be escorted out of here too. So I think it's pretty fair all the way across the board. I don't see anything really bad in it. And you've seen on TV and stuff where people got really bad and, not necessarily here, but they
Down
can
to
get pretty
Chicago?
rowdy.
Yeah.
But we are on YouTube.
Yeah. Angela? Leave it. Pete?
Take it out.
Dennis?
I'm in favor of leaving it,
Bill?
Leave it.
Ron?
leave it alone.
Okay.
I've got one other thing to say about this. There's a big change here. We formerly always said you had to talk about things that were on the agenda. And that's been removed. So now you can talk about your neighbors, dog barking or other issues that you have in mind. And I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
And the idea is by doing that, we make notes naturally and it may, get on our next agenda. We do have two types of meetings. This meeting tonight is the village meeting. This is where we make all our decisions, discuss and make decisions. We also have a committee of the whole meeting. And the whole idea of that meeting was to involve people in the audience to get their ideas so we could talk about agenda items and make changes with things.
So we usually have to count the first one.
Yeah, the count, right.
So
We're going
you
back.
can't act on it, but you can bring it up and we can act on it the following meeting if it gets on the minutes.
Right.
So that's what that's for.
Okay, well, we have a first and a second with the changes that we discussed previously. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Yep.
All right. 6.2, cancellation of the July 7th, 2025 Village Board meeting and replaced with a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for July 8th, 2025 at 3:30 PM. Do we need to have a vote on this or is this just a statement? Okay. Okay,
I'm
We'll
sorry,
go in-
Madam President.
Yeah.
6.2. We need a motion on that.
all right. So I will make a motion to cancel the July 7th meeting and replace it with the committee of the whole July 8th at 3:30 PM.
Second.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
I've got I want to explain why it's going to be at 3:30 in the afternoon or what it's.
Go ahead. I'll let you talk to that.
I'll let Cassandra talk to it. Why is the meeting going to be at 3:30 in the afternoon that day?
Was scheduled for 3:30 so that we can have our consulting engineer as well as our Ellers both attend the meeting and provide ample time for a full discussion. If you would like to be later, we can always do it later, but that was,
Trouble with the time. I just want to tell the public.
Oh, sure.
What the meeting's all about.
so the meeting is scheduled for 3:30 in the afternoon. It will be for your 15-year transportation plan. This will be something that you will hear annually. You heard it last year as well. It was in August. We're trying to work on bumping up our budget cycle so that we're talking more frequently throughout the summer, going into the fall about what the budget is, what's coming, and the why, so that when you get to September and October budget workshops, you've already been able to hear some of the background to the why. Why is staff asking for a replacement of something, or why is this road scheduled for this time of the year instead of, 3 years from now? So that's the reason why, is to start talking about budget items first sooner in the year, so that when we get to budget workshops, the public as well as the board have had more information in advance.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. All right, and that will that be on YouTube as well? The July 8th meeting at 3:30, because that's quite early for everyone, so I just want to make sure that we have it on YouTube
Yes.
so that people could go back and watch it if they
Yes, they
wish.
can.
Okay, great. Okay, number 8, presentation, petitions, communications. 8.1, sharing center update by Sharon Palmaville.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here this evening to give a brief update on what's going on at the Sharing Center and what we're seeing in the community. My name is Sharon Palmaville. I'm the Executive Director of the Sharing Center at 25700 Wilmont Road in Trevor. For those who are unfamiliar with the Sharing Center, we are rural Kenosha County's crisis and resource provider, offering basic needs services to adults, families, seniors, and those who are homeless. The board has asked me to provide an update on the center, including trends we're seeing, current needs, recent successes, and the impact of federal grant changes on our community. Since my last update, there have been ongoing discussions at both the state and federal levels about Medicare, Medicaid, WIC, food share, and other federally funded support programs. While few concrete changes have been implemented yet, the potential impact could be significant, especially for rural families who rely on services like the Kenosha County Health Department, mental health programs, educational programs, senior services, and disability support for children and adults. While the center itself receives no federal funding, these partner agencies do, so we're closely monitoring those developments, preparing for any ripple effects that may come our way. In terms of use of center services, the demand has continued to rise sharply. In 2023, we broke all records. 2024 kept that same pace. And so far in 2025, the numbers of people seeking help is increasing even more. It's simply the cost of food and housing that's driving the use of center programs. The majority of the adults that we serve are employed, often as essential but lower wage jobs like essential healthcare support, food service, and agriculture. These are the people who keep our communities running, from nurses' aides to grocery store workers, farm and ag laborers, gas station attendants, and Amazon workers, but their incomes often fall short of covering basic needs. People are doing their best, and they're working hard, but they're still struggling to make those ends meet. We anticipated this trend and took proactive steps, training our staff and volunteers, increasing supply inventories, and ensuring we could respond quickly so families would stay housed, fed, and warm. But one of our most pressing needs in our region, as most of you know, is housing. That's why I, along with Brad and Cassandra, serve on the CABA Affordable Housing Task Force and its work groups. And what I've seen so far is very promising. The task force is diving deep into local housing needs, exploring new funding models, proposing regulatory changes, and looking at alternative housing options that move beyond the traditional 5-acre, 300,000 or 3,000 square foot home model. I'm encouraged by the work being done, and I look forward to the Cobham presentation in the future on its findings and the next steps to expand Kenosha County's housing stock. In the meantime, we continue to support families directly. Preparations are underway for a big back to school program that starts August 1st, assisting approximately 400 rural children to start the school year strong with backpacks, gym shoes, socks, school supplies, snacks, hygiene items, and more. October brings our winter gear distribution, coats, snow pants, and boots for children and adults. November and December are holiday meals to roughly 3,000 community members here on the West End. And our holiday gift program will serve another 700 to 900 rural children this year. Thank you again for your time and your support and for your ongoing commitment to the rural families that we serve. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are you in need of any supplies or anything like that? Is there anything that you're not getting that you need?
I always tell people to look at the front page of the website, which I maintain.
Okay.
So it's always an updated list of exactly what we need and when. So it's ever changing, but there's some things that are pretty static there. But as there are critical needs, I always post them there. And sometimes we'll do some shout outs on social media.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned that the needs continue to increase and that you broke some records. Do you happen to have any numbers handy that of what you went over on compared to previous seasons or years?
When I started a little more than a decade ago, I think we were serving 14 or 1,500 people a year. Last year, it was close to 7,000. So it's increased substantially. It's of concern to me because our population hasn't, but the need has increased. So we're just a little bit higher in population out here from then, according to census data, but just the need is increasing as the cost of living is increasing, but wages just aren't keeping up.
And then, so you said 7,000. Of the 7,000, do you happen to know roughly how many are potentially residents of the village of Salem Lakes?
There was a group of about 1,000 people, don't quote me, about 1,000, that were calls from the city of Kenosha. They couldn't find help in the city, so they're starting to reach out further to the West End, trying to locate services. So approximately of that it was about 6,700, about 1,000 of that was people from outside of this area. So city of Kenosha, city of Racine, Walworth County, Lake County, McHenry County, even Milwaukee and Waukesha, because people just can't find what they're looking for. So they're reaching out to multiple areas. So of the 67, approximately 5,700 were residents of the West End.
So with your increase in demand, how's I think I remember we were looking at doing some kind of a land deal for expansion you need to do for some kind of building expansion. Where do we stand with that?
So right now, as we've done some preliminary architectural plans for the footprint that we have currently, we would need to get a possible variance in one or two areas. And there would also be the need for considering there's a piece of non-buildable land that's adjacent our property and to the village. And to have the conversation with the village, which they're willing to do at this point, to see if that might be a viable option for both of us, because that will kind of tell us whether we can stay or go in our current location. And with the way things are going kind of financially, I would love to stay in a smaller building that's more cost efficient. I mean, it's just so much easier on a monthly basis to maintain versus having to go someplace else in a much larger building. So it's our hope to stay right here in the village with a little bit of that village support. And we're willing to do, follow the books, follow the rules, and follow the process to make it happen if you're willing.
Sharon, do
Yes.
all of the facilities that offer support and help to those who need it, do they have a list that they maintain of all the churches and so forth that may also be an opportunity to visit to see if they may be able to help?
They do, and most of the churches, they refer to us. So there's a little bit that a church can do, but when it becomes a little bit more extensive than what the church is offering, those churches will send families to us for assistance.
And I take it then that you, the sharing center, are probably the biggest hub between Walworth, Racine, Kenosha, and Lake County?
We certainly are the site of I-94. In fact, 99% of all service providers, social service, government service, anything are on the other side of I-94, and it's just us, another one or two very small pantries, and a satellite office of Kenosha County Human Services at the county center at 45 and 50. So we are the only provider out here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the ways we can continue to support the sharing center would be to try and see about if we can move forward with the land potentially.
Yes.
Staff, is that something we're working on?
Yes, it is something we have been working on, and I need to sit down with Sharon again to look at the engineering designs of the retention wall. Potentially, it would have been as high as 10 feet tall, but there is a longevity of a retention wall that's 10 feet tall. If the wall is built that tall, it does compromise the integrity of your retention basin, and that is not acceptable. So we would have to figure out how to build that in such a way that our retention basin is not compromised. We did have an engineering analysis done of that. So that is the next step, is to sit down and see, is there any other way to build that wall so that it is not going to jeopardize or compromise our retention basin, because it does serve a function that has to be maintained. Okay.
It won't be a 10-foot wall.
Okay.
Yeah, according to engineering, it's not that high at all. It's probably half of that height, so.
About 5 foot.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and still maintain the integrity of that drainage that's behind it. Yeah,
All right, so great. Well, hopefully see that move forward.
that sounds, I hope so. I would be very grateful, and I think it'd be great for the community, and it's just to stay where we're at is such a better way to be fiscally responsible as a nonprofit. You can make a lot happen out of a small space, and I think we could stay there for many decades and still do good work for the community.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the work that the sharing center does.
Thank you. Anything else? Awesome. All right. Thanks so much.
Sharon. Okay, clerk's office, 9.1, approval of minutes from May 19th, 2025, village board meeting. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 9.2, approval of applications filed with the clerk for direct sellers with approval contingent on background check clearance and payment of necessary fees as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Based on their applications in the portal.
Payment of necessary.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are definitely trying to sell, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Can you explain what they are selling?
Yeah, it's a lawn care. So, what is it? We had, the green machine one year, and who were the people out of Burlington last year? And
Weed thump.
Weed Bag.
Yeah.
Yep. Now this one.
There's 24 applicants, right?
Yep. What's the, how long are they asking for?
2 months,
2 months.
so 60 days.
And I would also encourage the residents to challenge them if they see them in your yard. Because they have been known to slide in a few extras that have not gone through the background checks. And you'd be surprised at what we will find.
Yeah. Okay, we have a first by trustee Hopkins. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 9.3, update Badger books and implementation for 2026 election cycle.
All right. So just a little bit of a background. In 2017, the Wisconsin Election Commission developed an electronic poll book system to be used in conjunction with their Vote online election management software. The Badger books remain within the polling place and connect securely to each other and are never connected to the internet or any other network outside of their grouping. So this would not be connected to any phone line, fax line, internet, anything like that, that some people seem to think. I provided the board with a very lengthy memo that kind of went over quite a bit of the concerns and the items that it would help assist with. So I'll touch on a few of them, but I'm not going to go over it in its entirety. The Badger books helps with numbering. During an election night, the books, depending on if they're split in half or in thirds, it is up to the poll workers to keep the numbers in a consistent order. As simple as that sounds, that is a difficult feat when you have thousands of people coming into a polling location and all of that activity going on. So these Badger books would assign those poll numbers automatically to them sequentially as they're being seen at the front. That being said, it would also eliminate line inequity. At this last election, especially in April here at Village Hall, it never fails, you know, N through Z is a mile long and A through M is empty. So this would get rid of that. We wouldn't have to split poll books or have special lines for certain names. So it would get rid of that and it would move everything along a little more quickly. It also removes a lot of need for paper. Typically now each poll book has 2 paper copies, one-sided with blank pages for election day registrations. We would only need to keep 1 copy, double-sided, not collated in case of emergency, power outage, emergency situations. Historically, I only know of 1 instance where in a municipality that's actually been used. There was an unfortunate shooting near, they had to pick everything up and move it. They picked up their poll books and they took the paper instead of the Badger books. But it doesn't happen very often, but we do keep that just in case. On election day, we'll also need less election inspectors. Given the nature of elections and the aging of a lot of our poll workers, it's been very hard to find poll workers and to recruit them and retain them and to keep them happy, as that gentleman said earlier. So this would only require 1 person per poll book rather than 2 with the paper. So there's less people we would need to recruit, and it saves us money hourly paying our poll workers. Absentee ballot processing would be a lot smoother because you can use the scanner that's with them and it checks them in quicker in central count. So in a larger election, such as the presidential, it should go a lot smoother and quicker. Poll list reconciliation after every election, it is up to us right now manually to make sure that every participation is accounted for. And we have to reconcile and make sure that X amount of voters that we scanned is the same amount that went through the machines. And if not, we have to come up with why. A lot of that will be back to the poll numbers, double numbers issued, and we couldn't figure out why. We go through those books over and over. And sometimes after an election like the presidential, it took us almost 2 months to make sure that everything was accounted for. With the Badger books, we could close the election within a week of holding it. So it does eliminate a lot of that staff time that would go into closing the election and everything as well.
Sarah, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Didn't we have an issue during the last election that these Badger books would have prevented someone went to the wrong polling stations, was it?
Yes. So prior to the election, we load the entire state database onto the books. So it has every registered voter in the state of Wisconsin. And if John Smith comes up, gives their name, date of birth, and it pulls them up and it tells them they're in the wrong location. So if we had Badger books, it would have told that particular voter that they were indefinitely in the correct place. So we did have a few voters that were directed to Wilmot, and it was human error. You know, we are only human and we can try as best as we can. But those incidents do happen occasionally. That wouldn't happen with this. It would tell them they're in the wrong place. It would tell them if they belonged in Paddock Lake. It would tell them if they belonged in Bristol. With our addresses here, it can get really convoluted as to where they're supposed to be. So that would be eliminated with this as well. Another thing it would help with would be voter registrations. In 2024, we had 753 people register on election day. Those also have to be vetted correctly, make sure they're filled out, and then hand entered and scanned and saved into our systems. If we had the Badger books, if you even say on average, we're having a quick day and it's 4 minutes per application, that would save us roughly 50 hours of staff time in an election like that. So it would definitely help speed up the process. We also get phone calls from the public asking, I voted, it's not recorded yet. That can also be reported much quicker. Once we close the election, the numbers are uploaded into Badger books within a half an hour, and they'll be able to see their participation. On those larger elections, it takes TNI quite a bit of time to reconcile and get everything the way it should be to properly report it to the state. So this would eliminate a lot of that as well. So there are no more elections here in 2025, so it would be a good time to rehab them and place the order and get training started, because it takes a little bit of time to train the poll workers, but they're very easy to use. I have ordered them in 2 municipalities and implemented them in one. And in that particular municipality, it was an older population, and I didn't have any backlash from my poll workers. It was really great, but I let them touch it, and I would love to have one set up in the lobby. The public can use it. We can upload an old election and let everyone kind of touch and feel. So I found that helped a lot to the public as well. We had one right in the lobby that we had sight on that they could touch and do as well. So in 2018, the village actually bought 10 Badger books. We bought 3 servers and 7 clients in the amount of $14,099. They were only used in 2 or 3 elections that I found, and then they were boxed up and placed in storage. I would like to update these to be clients because they are 7 years old. I wouldn't like to use them as a server just in case, 7 years old, they could fail. And that was on the recommendation of PDS as well. I would like to update those 10 and minimally buy 4 new servers, 1 for each polling location in central count. So I will throw out there that in the beginning, these did have a lot of hiccups to it. And it was my understanding that it was a lot at the time for the office to take. So they kind of liked the paper better. So they've been sitting down there for quite some time, and I can't update them myself. So every year, 2-3 times a year, you update it. They send you a reminder, you set them all up, and they're so far behind that I can't do that myself. So we do need the help of them. So refurbishing the 10 Badger books to be up and running, hopefully pending any issues, would cost just shy of $2,000. And the purchase of the minimal 4 that I'm asking for is $11,144.
How much is one of those?
So one server is $2,786, and one client, so that's just the general ones. So the difference is a server is the one that has all of the information on it, and that's what they talk to. They keep kicking it back to that server. That server is a little more expensive. The clients are $2,441.
So when you need the 4 for the polling places.
So grand total with the rehab of the 10 potentially and the 4 new ones is $13,124.
Okay, but we talked about closing the Wilmot, not doing that there anymore after the end of this year.
You wouldn't be closing it, you'd be relocating it. So
Okay.
instead of having it at the old Wilmot Fire Station, you would move it to the Triever Station.
So we would still need both.
Still need it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, recommendations for the state with the amount of registered voters we have is 14 to 15. And they do that on registered voters, not location per
Yeah.
se. So
Okay.
adding the 4 and keeping the 10 puts us at that minimum that they require for the amount we have.
So you're at 13,144.
And if we were to add say, just- Yep, if we were to add just one more client to that order, just in case those 10 start to fizzle out, right? Because they are 7 years old, would be an additional 7,323. So the grand total would be 20,447.
And what budget are we going to take this from?
In the 2025 budget, we did budget a $30,000 election contingency pending any type of issue that may have arisen. So there is a small budget already in the clerk's budget. It wasn't earmarked for anything in particulars.
Okay.
And then on top of that, just a few miscellaneous items. I would like to buy new rolling carts. So they're 40-gallon rolling carts, and each cart can hold 2 of the Badger books with the foam and everything. It makes it easier for them to transport back and forth. And then just the occasional cords and caution strips to
But
prevent
you
tripping.
would have enough within that 30,000 that you
You bet.
earmarked.
So
And what was the total cost again?
that you're looking for?
If I did the refurb with the servers, and if you would give me 3 extra above and beyond, it's 20,447.
47.
Mhm.
I would make a motion to approve 20,500 for upgrades of the Badger books for the clerk's office.
Second,
Who was that?
Pete.
Pete. All right, Pete with the second. Okay, all in favor?
I
Aye. Anyone opposed? 9.4, review and update of chapter 305, intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverages.
So coming into the clerk's office and being new to the licensing season that we are currently part of, I noticed that our ordinances are kind of behind. There was an adoption of Act 73 in 2024 that changed a lot of the state statutes, and I would like to direct legal to assist in giving all of it an overhaul and an update to become more compliant with the state. So I just wanted to bring it up to you and, to see if you would be willing to do that. For example, in the old ordinances, in order to serve wine, you have to have a food minimum of 60%. They got rid of that. And anyone can really qualify for a Class C wine license. So it's changes like that that I would like to take a look at and update.
I'd say go ahead and, we did a motion to have you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll motion that you
Direct legal.
can update it through our attorneys.
I'll second.
All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Are the updates in here now?
No,
No.
I didn't want to spend legal dollars unless the board gave me direction to do.
But we're gonna vote on them again for it when we see the differences.
Correct.
So you're gonna highlight the old one or highlight the new one?
Mhm.
Probably highlight the old one, put the new one in.
Yep.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Review and update chapter 283-5 fireworks display.
All right. So staff has received several inquiries from individuals and businesses interested in hosting fireworks displays. Again, coming in my job, I follow the ordinances and state statutes. So currently those requests are now being denied and not permissible within the village code. So I would like to know if I can direct legal to give me a hand in rewriting our ordinance and adding the term any individual or group of individuals to the issuance of a display permit. So for example, we had a tavern that wanted to host a festival of some sort and wanted to get a fireworks company to come in and light off fireworks. According to our current ordinance, that is not allowed. You need to be a public authority, a fair association, amusement park, park board, civic organization, or an agricultural producer for the protection of crops from predatory birds or animals. So they were denied. So I know of 2 instances where we did deny them in the last few months. So I thought I would bring it up to the board again to maybe take a look at and see if you would like to change it.
So you just want to change that item 6 on there?
Yep.
Could you also explain what the application? Originally, I had concerns about this. I just thought that, anybody could apply for this license, but there are other things in the application that require a professional to actually ignite the fireworks.
Yeah.
And the location is identified, and it also requires the fire chief to sign off on the application.
That
or
is
look at
correct.
it.
Yep. So they need proof of financial responsibility and insurance. So they do have to get a special insurance policy to cover the event. They are required to provide the type and the number of fireworks that they're lighting, a diagram of the location for which the display is going to be lit, certificate of competency of the supervising operator, copies of their alcohol, tobacco and firearms explosives permit, DOT insurance, with the transporting letter of permission to display the fireworks from the property owner. I've seen in the past where the property owners actually help them fill it out. So it's usually a joint thing. So they usually have the permission. So all of that needs to be completed, turned in with the application, and then the fire department does review it and make sure that everything is up to par.
And is there a fee for the permit?
Currently, our ordinance states that we can charge a fee, but we do not have one. So that is something we might want to look at in the future as well.
I think if we're gonna look at updating it, then we should
So
discuss that.
if you'd like,
Yeah.
when I'm taking that to legal further assistance, I can do some
Research.
research as to what others charge.
Yep.
I'd make a motion to proceed with making these changes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 9.6, request to close Railroad and Depot Street on June 14th from 4 to 10 PM for Uncle George's Bar and Grill.
So in your packet, you have a copy of the request from the tavern. They would like to host their yearly event and request barricades from the village.
I'll move to approve this.
Second.
Faber and Brooks. Any other
This-
questions?
This is something that is not, this has been done in the past. In fact, this section of road used to be closed for the water fights, for example. And Silver Lake used it quite a lot when they were a village and had their activity there.
Yeah. Great. All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, Public Works. 10.1, purchase of a replacement front end loader from Miller, Bradford and Riseburg, Inc. in the amount of $275,320.
Good afternoon. So we have a 1991 Dresser 518. It's got roughly 7,200 hours on it. The condition on it, it's getting pretty rough. It is, 34 years old. So we're looking to replace that. It was approved in the budget cycle for $300,000 for a replacement this year. With that said, we did demo 5 machines, a Case, a Komatsu, John Deere, Hyundai, and Sany. With that said, we also did get a quote from Roland, which is the Komatsu dealer. The Dresser is actually a Dresser Komatsu, so that's why we brought it to them. And as you see, we got a quote, including tires from Aero Tire. It comes out to be about $32,000. Talking with Mr. Poley a little earlier, not all that work needs to be done in a shop. Some of that stuff can be done in-house, but not all of it. That does not include any of the cosmetic repairs, which it has holes in the cab, holes in the floor, just the hood's rotted out. I mean, it's 34 years old. It's seen weather. So with that, we did call around. We did get some ballpark numbers on a trade-in just to propose that to you guys. They said it's about worth $15,000. Obviously, it might vary if we send it to auction or even trade it in once they actually see the condition of it. So I would still say, even with us doing some of the work, we'd be putting more money into that machine than it's actually worth. To me, it's just not a good decision. That's my opinion. So, like I said, we demoed the 5 loaders. We had a multiple of the staff, ran them. And we kind of did a pros and cons list. I don't know, Sarah, did you? Okay. So Nate actually put that together on the pros and cons on what we liked, what we didn't like. Try to be fair to every single machine that we had. Because at the end of the day, we're a little indifferent on what we get, but we want something that's quality that's going to last us a while. We chose the 651G, the case, to be the best fit for our needs. We were able to do a lot of different scenarios. We did a lot of loading, grading, what else? Yeah, it was in the winter time, so we were dealing with frozen ground and stuff. So we were kind of really able to see what the machines could do. So the 651 obviously is not the cheapest on the list here, but I think it's going to be the best fit. Kind of did the math. I would assume this thing would last about 25 years, if not maybe 30. That's at 25 years, you're looking at $11,000 a year investment on this. We did call a couple companies and there was some questions about rentals and leasing options. To sum it up, we're looking at $3,000 a week, $6,500 a month in a rental. For a lease for a year, that'd be $30,000. Now you could lease it to own it, so you can divide that up 36 months, 48 months, and you can kind of set up a payment plan. But with that, you're paying interest on that, just like a car loan. To answer a couple of your questions, I was able to get a hold of Jameson from Miller Brad. That in that quote, it says one auxiliary joystick control. That is the third function. So it comes with the standard two, added the third, and that care or case care, that's just they throw that in. That's free. There's no deduction.
So for 36 months, the oil changes and services are pro bono?
Correct. They do it. So the services are probably around 250 hours, 500 hours. You have your 1,000-hour service. Each service on these machines can entail different aspects. The 250,000 might just be an oil, hydraulic filter, stuff like that. 500 might be a little bit more. 1,000 might be full hydraulic oil replacement, all that kind of stuff. So I don't have this actual what they do on each one, but it does vary from previous experiences with something similar. So and then we talked about its Sourcewell. And these are all Sourcewell numbers. So
well, I guess when we did talk about that, you say they're Sourcewell equivalent, but it wasn't run through Sourcewell.
They are ran through Sourcewell. So actually, I don't have an example on the case quote, but if you look at the Komatsu quote, it does actually say at the number that it is a Sourcewell contract number.
Okay, so when you and I talked earlier, you said it wasn't run through there. So did you?
Oh, well, I wasn't entirely sure until I spoke with him to verify that.
So the procedure would be to go through a dealer to get Sourcewell numbers, not to go through
You can do it both ways. So if you call a dealer directly, being a municipality, they will probably pretty much every time automatically go to Sourcewell unless they can beat that price through the manufacturer. So there is two different ways. You can go right to a dealership, they'll pull it, or you can go online and go through that course of action as well. That's pretty much all I got. Like I said, the dresser is in rough shape. It obviously we use it because we have it, but it is definitely in need of replacement. And with this also, we were looking to get a grapple bucket, which would serve the purpose for the yard waste site, any emergency tree down scenarios, and just regular maintenance on brush cutting, stuff like that to load trucks. We also have a 4-in-1 plow also included on the quote. So the prices that you see at the bottom here are including attachments. So
you use this for snow as well?
We would as well, yeah.
So question for you. So when I look on the documents that are in our folder, it lists the case 651G at 275,320. And on your form that you handed out to us, it's 275,399, which is correct.
I might have just done a typo on that.
So which one is it?
270.
320 or 399? I mean, we're talking $79.
Right. I believe it is the 320.
Okay, I'd make a motion to approve the case 651G in the amount of 275,320.
Question.
Go ahead.
All right, I looked at this last year, not lately. I'm looking at this. This is about the biggest fluff job I've ever seen with the amount of things that they checked over here. Lines, a lot of it's maintenance. Machine still runs, nowhere in here that says we have bad engine or bad tranny. Right?
So in there, I don't know what page it's on, reading through it. So everything this quote showed, like I said, a lot of this stuff can be done in-house. As far
Right.
as some of the hoses,
We
we're
still
not
got
gonna
the
pay.
little hose machine yet. We still got the
Yeah,
crimper.
yep.
Yep.
We can't do all the hoses. We do still go out and, we'll go to Holland and
Right.
Kenosha, stuff like that. Not saying we can't, I was told we needed to get a quote. I got you a quote for everything that's wrong with it. Not saying this is
Well,
what we're paying to fix it.
main thing is we got a radiator that's bad. That's about $1,200, say $1,500. Replace it another $500 money. So we got 2,000 there. Muffler that, I mean, whatever you use in the salt shed is going to be eaten up.
Oh, 100%.
So wouldn't it be better to use the old one till it dies in the salt shed instead of putting the better ones in there?
I would say, so we do currently have two loaders. We have a 2009 case 521.
Correct. And
And
we also have two, see, we don't have a list of our equipment. We don't have ages. We don't have hours. We don't have nothing. We also have two combination rubber tired backhoes, correct, loaders. We have the skid steer loader. Do we have any other loaders
we have our excavator.
besides it?
Yeah.
I'm rubber tired loaders.
No, so we have the track skiddy that we bought last year.
Right.
We have the two combos and we have the two loaders.
Right.
The two combos, and that'll be a conversation for another day. They don't go out as much as they probably used to.
Right.
We use a lot
And
of
our
that
hours
excavator.
equals out to about 200 hours a year. If you do the
Yeah,
30 years, so it's not very many hours at all.
no, and I don't, do you,
We just got a new skid steer.
so yeah, the 2009 has 2,200 hours on it,
Yep.
roughly, shooting from the hip here. I hope you're good at math.
That's, I mean, that's still 200 hours. a
Yeah.
year. So we're about 200 hours a year. I know it's old. I mean, we just bought a new skid steer. And this thing to keep it running, a lot of these things are mostly maintenance. I mean, you got headlights on there and you don't need in a shed. I just think at this time, since we got other stuff to do, and until we get a list of all the machinery we own, ages, hours, I think at this time we should probably table that to me.
So we are putting that list together through the
Yeah, but we
capital
don't
plan
have
that
it
we're
here.
putting. Right, it's not in front of you. But once again, it is a 34-year-old machine.
Right? The older ones
Obviously-
are usually better because you don't have def, you don't have all
This,
electronics.
this one actually, the cases do not have def.
We got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
Another 2 years later, I don't know what year they came out with,
Yeah.
which is a pain in the butt.
Oh, it doesn't. Correct.
Yeah. The new one doesn't have def?
That was one more reason for the case was that it has a lot less emissions than all the other ones. I think it's a tier 4.
The
in
new one
emissions. The brand new one that we're looking at to buy.
doesn't have def?
It has DEF, but not a diesel particulate filter.
Okay.
It has something different that they're able to bypass that.
So just to jump in here for a second, Billy, if I may, and you and I talked about this earlier, Adam, that you weren't here for the budget workshops, but you could use the word approved, but during the budget workshops, the discussion was all right, we'll put the money in there, but then we're going to do the following things. And this is really not on you. So just so you know, you're not in the hot seat, but we were going to create a public works committee. We were going to get that inventory. We were going to, and then with that public works committee, go through and decide, like, are there other ways to attack some of these big expenditures? And that's not what's happening. And that was part of the discussion when we put the number in the budget. So then it leaves the board to try and do our research from Thursday night to tonight to come up with, are we making the best move here? And there's a couple things like we talked about, that plow. Do we really need it? And that's maybe one discussion. And then separately, the discussion is looking online, that plow can be had for less potentially, and maybe less specifically through that bidding process, that instead of the 40
So you don't get a markup, go right to the manufacturer.
Yeah, go to the manufacturer. The same thing with the machine, actually. I know you said that they were through and you weren't sure, but I'm not so sure that they properly went through, and that there might be lower numbers available to us as a municipality going through that program properly and contacting that agency. And it'd be worthwhile to just put the brakes on and make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck for the public. There was another item discussed during budget time, and that was the possibility of used. You and I talked about that, and I understand your concerns would be if, for used, and you find a used one, you don't have authorization, and then by the time you get authorization, maybe it's sold.
Correct. And it also is, it's kind of hard to compare apples to, here you guys are seeing brand new machines, through and through the prices. Used machines, everything varies on used. It's
right.
So it's hard to bring that up and say, hey, this is actually a really good deal, but it might be more than you thought it was going to be, or something like that. And as far as the plow, kind of what I was mentioning is there are opportunities to find, a demo or a used one. If you guys gave us approval to buy the loader and the grapple bucket, and I could find it, obviously I know we budgeted 300,000, so I'm going to just say, like, hey, we got this little piggy bank, let's say that's budgeted for it. I might be able to find one that's half the price, or $15,000 less, or $10,000 less, and I can bring that back, and you guys can make a decision on
Will
the
not
plow.
our old plow fit on that?
That one.
No, the plow for the dresser does not fit, nor does the plow that's on the 521. Neither of those will fit.
So you have a plow and a wing plow on
It's
the newer
it's a
machine.
plow wing combo.
No, it's on the dresser, according to you, Adam, not on the case.
There is one on the dresser as well, but
So
it's,
they both have them?
yes.
Tail.
That's where, if you look at the plow wing combo, I believe it was like 70 something thousand dollars to put that on there. And that was kind of the give was, also this box plow with the 4-in-1 box plow. After looking at them, they're going to be a lot more user friendly for us, for what we're going to use them for.
Right. And I like your idea where you would go and see what you could find, but if we took that box plow, it's like in excess of like what we spent on the brush cutter, and actually put it out to its own separate bid. So still getting it, but just not getting it from this particular supplier.
And like I said, I'm open to that. I just wanted to present what we wanted for attachments all in one for the idea. So you guys have an idea of what we're looking at and what we're trying to go for, and, better the department in basically all 4 seasons here.
And I know you do need a grapple. That's
The grapple would
to move
definitely
the
come in
brush,
handy.
but I
We have the clam bucket as we discussed, but grapple will be a lot more beneficial.
the main thing is if you get swung with the holes in the bottom, the gravel falls out. So when you move and you go to put it in the shredder, it doesn't
Correct.
destroy everything. So you want to keep the gravel out, and you can move 3 to 4 times the amount of brush that you can with a loader.
Yes.
So Brad, I got a question for you.
But you can find it cheaper. Different models are a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not different models. When we come up and do these quotes and try to present it, I personally think comparing apples to apples is the best way. So it's nice to find, obviously there's going to be cheaper and there's going to be more expensive. That's with anything that we bring to the board, but I like to keep it to where it's all the same brand, so it doesn't reflect on the prices. You know, if Miller Bradford with the case, they might have sold us the Metal Plus, and that'd be $60,000 instead of a $40,000 plow.
$9,000. I understand there's some $9,000 out there and it goes all the way up.
Yeah, I haven't seen one. Normally, just a standard 3-yard bucket is $8,000 to $9,000.
If you get less than a bucket, more of a teeth or whatever you want to call it, it gets cheaper, lighter weight, everything.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's other options. It was just more so I can compare. You know, this was a brand that everyone was able to supply us, so we were able to keep it honest
And
between
this is
all
where
the quotes.
this is where that committee we were talking about does a preview with you and gets in there and goes through everything.
It would
and
be
figure out what
beneficial.
you want to get.
Yep.
So Brad, when are you gonna have the capital plan and being presented to the full board? When is that gonna take place?
June 23rd.
Okay,
That's your
so,
committee of the whole meeting on June 23rd in the afternoon.
okay, so now I would change my motion to table this until we hear from the capital plan.
Second that. I know we had quite a discussion when we did our budget. We did put 300,000 in, but this is the first budget that we also is not a balanced budget, and we were looking for ways to proceed as Mr. Foley just mentioned with renting or
Used. Yeah, I would like to look at some used ones and you get some when they come off the plowing circuit. They got hours on them, but they get used.
Yeah, like
I
there's,
think the committee in working with,
I think the best of the committee, we look around.
So I will say though, talking with these dealers, the prices will be going up, minimum of 3%. So the numbers that I have here today, obviously we'll have to go back and get all updated numbers. Maybe some are the same, maybe some are not. And that doesn't mean there might be one on the lot in Nebraska at this price still. That didn't get affected, but I was told that they will be going up after this quote.
New stock coming in then.
Yeah, tariffs, all that stuff. It's gonna raise the prices on the machines. I mean, cases are built domestically. It's just a lot of their parts are imported.
It's like everything.
So, I mean, it's just, I just wanted you guys to keep that in mind. So when I do come and, you know, it's a little more expensive, you guys understand that. So.
I appreciate your hard work on this. And I think, you know, when these have these expensive attachments, instead of trying to have the dealers group the attachments and machines, apples to apples will be machine to machine. And then separately, we can do a bid on expensive attachments. And I think we'll be finding maybe the better dollar. And so if attachment comes from one dealer and a machine comes from another, that's not the worst thing.
Right. And I mean, they are mostly broken out with, you know, with additions. So the attachments were additional to the machine. So, like I said, as I showed it on the memo, I combined it all, but as far as the invoices, they were kind of broken out as options. So, but yeah, I'll work on getting updated stuff for after the capital plan meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes, so we have Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Faber to table this until after the capital plan meeting on 6/23. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Number 11, planning and zoning. 11.1, request to amend a previously approved conditional use permit for a construction services business to include a towing business in the B5 wholesale trade and warehousing district on tax parcel 7041233320200, located in the northwest 1/4 of section 33, township 1 north, range 20 east, village of Salem Lakes. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located on the south side of County Highway C, approximately 1.6 miles east of County Highway B.
Hi, Andy Bueller, planning for the village. You have before you conditional use permit amendment. It's an amendment because this property already has a conditional use permit for construction. Services, and this is for the ability to have another business be located in the building, which is for towing. They need to have a building and a location to be able to obtain a license for this. And as you'll see in the conditions, there's 6 conditions. It's a very limited use. 1 tow truck, 1 parking location, no vehicles are allowed to come to this site. And the business plan as they presented before the Plan Commission was that they're not in that type of business to bring vehicles back. They bring them from one location to another. And the Plan Commission did hear this on the 21st, and a motion was made to approve, and it passed unanimously.
I'll make a motion to approve. So. I'll second it.
Okay, so Faber and Gant. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, I don't have anything to sign for this, do I? Do I need? Okay. All right, 11.2 ordinance 2025.06-92. An ordinance amending the adopted land use plan maps for the Village of Sam Lakes, maps 23, 24, and 25. From NB neighborhood business to HC highway corridor business on tax parcel 704-122610201. Located in the north 1/2 of section 26, township 1 north, range 20 east, Village of Salem Lakes. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located on the northeast corner of County Highway C and State Highway 83, Antioch Road.
Okay, before you tonight, you have that, and then the next item, which is a rezone. I'm going to talk about both together because that's the only way where it'll really make sense. So the property is on the northeast corner, and that has a church that is no longer there and has a parsonage. And so with the church no longer being utilized, the parsonage actually becomes non-conforming because the only way to be able to have a residence on the property is for a church to be there in the institutional zoning, because that's an accessory use, it's the parsonage. So the residence that is there will remain there, but it is existing non-conforming. And so with the proposals before you, it'll stay existing non-conforming. So there'll be a limitation of 50% on what improvements can structurally be made to that. So that's just one thing I just wanted you to be aware of in regards to the property, and the property owner is aware of this. We met with them and went through these options. This item is an allowed change from the neighborhood business to highway corridor. So this is one of the main intersections in the village. And so with the new plan that I think within the next month will be coming before the board with the update to the 2050 plan, is for that intersection to be a major area for commercial activity. Neighborhood business is really not that type. Highway commercial would be, so that's kind of leading in direction for that. And then in doing that, it would allow for the B3 zoning to be implemented, which is the next item, because it would be in concert with the highway corridor. And the highway business B3 district allows for every type of business that would be allowed in the zoning ordinance to be there. And then in this case, it will allow for the existing vacant church business to be able to solicit other types of businesses of a wide variety that could then be located there. So first you need the comp plan change, and then the associated rezone that would eliminate the institutional and allow the commercial, would allow the owner then to, like I said, solicit different retailers that could come and use that.
Do we have to do these separately or can we do them all at once?
You do have to do them separately.
I make a motion for 11.2 to change it to the highway neighborhood business to highway corridor business. The tax parcel 70-4-120-261-02001.
Second it.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
No.
11.3 ordinance 2025.06-93, an ordinance rezoning tax parcel 704-120-261-0201 from A1 agricultural preservation district and I1 institutional district to B3 Highway Business District located in the north one half of section 26, township 1 north, range 20 east, village of Salem Lakes. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located at the northeast corner of County Highway C and State Highway 83 Antioch Road.
So moved. Second.
And I'll just state that at the planning commission on both those items, a motion was made to approve and it was unanimous, just so you are aware.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. 11.4, resolution 2025.06-128, a resolution conditionally approving a certified survey map stamped received April 22nd, 2025 by Mark A. Bolender of Ambit Land Surveying to create one approximately 8-acre parcel and one approximate half-acre outlot from tax parcel 704-120-344-0562 and part of tax parcel 704-120-344-0380. For informational purposes only, this parcel is known as Wilson Runyard Park.
Madam President, can we do discussion before motion?
Absolutely. This has a lot of discussion. Yes, I would like to hear from staff. And I guess to explain why it's in front of the village board.
Okay, good evening. So I prepared a lengthy memo, which was put into the board packet for the public's ability to read as well as to the board. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I am going to go through it for anyone that has not read this memo. So on December 2nd, 2024, the village board did meet to discuss the potential of exchanging a half-acre of land comprised of cattails for a half-acre of upland to be attached to Wilson Runyard Park. During the meeting, direction was given to staff to pursue this land exchange following the procedures outlined by legal, which indicated this should be heard by the planning commission and that a land survey and certified survey map should be completed. That's step one. So step one was the board, I came to you and asked, is this something you would be interested in? Yes or no? The board said yes. Had the board said no, it would have died right there. But because the board said yes, then we followed the steps identified by legal. So we took it to the planning commission. That was heard on December 18th, 2024. During that meeting, the planning commission gave approval for the land exchange so long as the exchange did not create a non-conforming lot. So the original thought was you would put a half-acre along the road, Rock Lake Road there, but you couldn't because it would create a non-conforming lot. So still keeping the parcel contiguous to the village park, it was shifted so that it would be contiguous. You can see that. So the area in question this evening is the area in red is owned by the village. The area in blue is owned by a private landowner with the last name Honecker. The area in blue is contiguous to Outlot 10. Outlot 10 and Outlot 11 are owned by the village and they are part of that lake, or part of the park. So by attaching the blue to Outlot 10, it would create an area of the park that's higher, drier, and the area in red is cattails. The area in red does have a pier on it that is maintained by the Honeckers. That pier was put in a long time ago. I think somebody said earlier, it was about 19 years ago, and it was put in with a handshake agreement. The village did authorize that. The DNR also allowed it. So it has been there on a longstanding agreement. So following the planning commission meeting, the staff did ensure that the land that would be exchanged would remain contiguous to the park and would not create a non-conforming residential lot. A survey and certified survey map was completed this spring and brought back to the planning commission on May 21st, where they were asked to review and approve the certified survey map. All of this was publicly noticed. During the meeting, the planning commission did not make a decision regarding the certified survey map, and they tabled the discussion and referred this back to the Parks Commission. So when we go back and look at the Constitution of Wisconsin and statutes that provide the village board, planning commission, parks commission with their authorities. There is a section in the Constitution that you can consult for how lands can be exchanged or sold. The Constitution allows the village board to determine that lands to be swapped are not necessary for such improvements to the park and may be conveyed. Moreover, these provisions of the Wisconsin Constitution and statutes grant the village board the ability to place reservations concerning the land's future use and occupation so as to protect the park and to preserve the view, appearance, light, air, and usefulness of the park. There is a section in this specifically in the statute that says, and after the establishment, layout, and completion of such improvements may convey any such real estate thus acquired and not necessary for such improvements with reservations concerning the future use and occupation of such real estate so as to protect such public works and improvements and their environs and to preserve the view, appearance, light, air, and usefulness of such public works. So that's the section that says you have the ability to dispose of lands that you're not using or to exchange them if you so choose. There's additionally some language in the Constitution that says after the establishment, layout, and completion of such improvements, such city may convey or lease any such real estate thus acquired and not necessary for such improvements, with reservations concerning the future use and occupation of such real estate, so as to protect such public works and improvements and their environs and to preserve the view. Again, it says the same stuff. So as described in the introduction of the memo, the village board appropriately referred the proposed land swap to the planning commission at its December 2nd board meeting. The plan commission then took up the matter at its December 18th meeting, resulting in the comment from the plan commission about the non-conforming lot. So we made sure that it wasn't non-conforming. It was heard May 21st. And now the requirements for the village board to refer the proposed land swap to the plan commission for its consideration and a report is set forth and again in the statute. Going to read that a third time. But the last sentence of this section, Wisconsin statute 62.235 says, unless such a report is made within 30 days or such longer period as may be stipulated by the common council, the council, or in this case, the village board, or other public body or officer may take final action without it. So essentially what that's trying to tell you after conferring with legal is the planning commission was given time to consider this. 30 days was the time limit. And so without them making a decision because they referred it back to another committee, the board gave them time to consider it. And now per the law, it's back to the board. So you have to then decide per the law if you would like to give them more time, the planning commission, to consider this, or if you are ready to make a decision and move forward, or if you don't want to do this at all. So
Cassandra, I have a question for you.
yes.
Back on, let me get the dates here. December 18th, 2024. There was a motion by Commissioner Schwartz to make a recommendation that the village proceed with the proposed land swap subject to the following conditions being placed on the land transfer. 1, anti-pyramiding to prohibit the landowner from granting other landowners or persons riparian access across the parcel being transferred to the village. 2, restrict the total number of piers across the wetlands to access the lake to 1. 3, that the waterfront access continues to be used for residential purposes only. And 4, that this parcel be combined by the certified survey into the principal property and cannot be further subdivided, seconded by Commissioner Phillips. Have all 4 of those been met by the landowner?
They're all in the resolution attached to your agenda this evening.
Thank you.
So I did have a question. When you asked the board, you did not get a unanimous yes. My comments were it should go through committee and then see if the Parks Commission has use for it, because that's who's going to receive it. We heard from a member of Parks Commission tonight during public comments that at least that person believes that the Parks has no use for it. We're going to send it back to committee anywhere, which I think we should. I'm wondering why Parks Commission is not part of this process. Like to say, because one of the comments I had at that night when you asked was, can we make sure we have like some kind of a layout? Like, are we getting enough land to do whatever it is we think we want to do? Like, can we use that area? Can the trees even be cut down in there? Can we change the C2 zoning? There's a lot of questions. And And if none of those come to fruition, in regards to use, and especially for having planning make a decision slash, or us make a decision, and we're not including a committee, Parks Committee, that doesn't seem right to me.
And
So-
I asked, I think it was, I asked to run it by Park Committee, whether
Yeah.
they legally have to do it or not, it should still run by them, because they're the ones that are controlling the park
Tasked
system.
with developing it, yeah.
Right.
They're controlling the what? I'm sorry.
The parks, they're telling us what they would like to do, and then we make the final decisions, but.
Okay. But case in point, though, the planning commission has referred it back to us.
No,
Only by time.
On here, it says, and again, I'm going to state verbatim what's in the minutes that were approved by the planning commission to proceed with the proposed land swap. Make a recommendation that the village proceed with the proposed land swap.
That's from a December meeting, but not
That
the
is
most,
December meeting.
that's not the most current meeting about this
Oh,
topic.
it shouldn't have even gone back to the planning commission a
It-
second time.
It went back to the planning commission because they needed to approve the certified survey map. They were not asked to reconsider if they should do the land swap because they had already made that decision. The decision they were asked to do was to consider that certified survey map and approve that so that could come here for approval.
Can we ask that park commissioner to come up and give information about what parks really thought about it officially?
Are they going to, is the parks being formally recognized tonight? Parks Committee.
no,
They are not.
they are not.
Is the Parks Committee formally recognized tonight? Formally.
Meaning it's been to the
No.
Parks Commission and you took a vote and you have the ability to speak on behalf of the entire Parks Commission.
You're not answering my question, John. All right.
Nothing.
So it just seems wise to me to, if we're gonna be exchanging land, that we find out from parks, which is what I mentioned that first night that you're saying we said yes, was that what, run it by parks and make sure that they have a plan for this, and will this amount of land work? That is what I said.
So-
And we did not take.
You know what? We can cut this short and just bring it to a vote right now. We can
No,
discuss.
we're not done discussing. So
So let me just. speak
Nobody's
to
made it
that.
first.
Dennis, go ahead, because I know that you have a lot to address with this piece of property.
In the very beginning, and this whole thing came about because the Honeckers wanted to use some chemicals to get rid of some cattails that had floated on that property, and they found out then that that we owned a strip of land there. Originally, we thought it was just a narrow strip. It turns out to be a little wider, but most of it is on the other side of the high water mark where the cattails are. I happen to know back then a representative or a person with the DNR, Heidi Hopkins, who self-retired. And she gave the Honeckers, said it'd be okay to put a pier there. When they applied for the chemical permit is when this all came to light. And they said, well, they'd be happy to exchange land that could be used. And we had talked about a pickleball court. But then after the recommendation of making sure that you didn't create a problem, they did the survey and they were getting a different land. The land that we would be giving up is cattails and useless. We still have access to the lake. At Runyard Park, the pier was taken out. And I've talked about replacing it, although we did spend $30,000 on a pier that we have on Rock Lake, but it's in a different location. But anyways, it's been mentioned a number of times in these discussions about the Lake District, that this would give some additional property to be able to create a Lake District. And I'm under the impression that the people that want to create the district already have 51% of the land around the lake. And it went to the county. They made an application with the county. The county assigned a committee to review it, and they had some questions. And in the meantime, it was withdrawn from the county. Now, one of the couples or persons that are dead set against this is on our park commission. And they've sent out letters and flyers. I've had phone calls from people over at Rock Lake wondering what this was all about. And they make it sound like if it's a district, it's something bad. Districts are something good. We have 4 districts in our village. The Volts Lake District, the Camp and Center Lake District is worth $450 million. It was built and put together on a watershed. Hooker Lake has a district that's worth $138 million. Silver Lake has one that's $100 million around riparian owners. And they do good things. And some of the things they do are put chemicals in the lake. It was on my lakeside property where I live the other day. Pretty scary warning, pesticide treatment area. But when you read into it, it tells you what they use. Prochlor EC is the chemical that was used, and it says the lake is restricted to as follows. Water within 200 feet and 600 feet. Do not treat water for the following purposes until it says swimming, no restriction. Consuming fish, no restriction. Drinking water, no restriction. Pet livestock water, no restrictions. This is all approved by the DNR. They just want where the chemicals are treated. Every property owner gets one of these in their yard if chemicals are going to be placed out there. It's not a bad thing to have a district. They get rid of the invasive species, which is Eurasian milfoil is very in all our lakes. Curly leaf pondweed is in all our lakes, and this chemical gets rid of it. And so as far as that consideration and that concern, I think that should not even be part of this discussion.
I agree.
Whatever they do with the property would be their business. And what they really want to do is just have access to the pier that was allowed 19 years ago and it's been there. And I know what would happen if it goes in the park. It's just going on and on and on. It's going to come back to us. And I personally am in favor of getting this behind us. It's going to increase the property value of their property, so their taxes could go up substantially because the value of their house is no longer Lakeview, but lakefront.
I really don't care. They can do for their lake association. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me, we give away something, and it's actually a giveaway. There's still hard land there. There's still that protects the lake, and to give it to a piece of property that we cannot do anything with.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think that's true. Did
We
you
can't
walk
cut
it?
the trees down. We can't do anything. It's
What we don't know is we haven't run it through parks for them to review what they can and can't do with it. So if we were to redirect this to parks and then find out, yeah, this is great, we can do some stuff, then I'll get behind it and move it forward. Or we can't use this, we need to figure out a way to be able to make it usable. And then it's not worth moving forward. And that's the information that's missing from moving forward.
In my opinion, there is one thing that is fact. The land that we would be giving to them or exchanging to them is not usable.
That's understandable, whether you think it's usable or not, it being cattails and some hardland. It's what we're receiving and doing this whole swap. And we've also heard from members of the public tonight, almost every public comment except for one was related to this swap. And then we've all received multiple emails. I haven't received a single email in favor or has heard a single comment in favor. Only thing that I've heard in favor is creating some kind of a lease or access egress easement. Seems like that could go over much better with the community. So I don't know that we need to rush this through, especially since planning ran out of time. Maybe they had something in December, like you said, Bill, but then after reviewing it, they came up with some other decision and moved that forward. We're missing some key components here to do this.
Okay. I, for one, want to move forward, so I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-06-128. Resolution conditionally approving a certified survey map stamped April 22, 2025 by Mark Bolander of Ambit Land Surveying to create one approximate 8-acre parcel and one approximately 0.05 acre outlet from parcel number 70-4-120-344-05-62 and part of tax parcel 70-4-120-344-3 or 0380. For informational purposes, this parcel is known as Wilson Bunyan Park. And as a side note, this has been going on for over a year now.
Mhm.
That's unfair to them. That this village as a whole.
Don't raise
hasn't
your
made-
voice at me.
Hasn't made a move on this as a whole, Pete. Not the
Yeah.
board, not the planning, the village as a whole.
We shouldn't have been asked about this in closed session. That was the first part that was wrong and where this started. Okay,
Was there a vote taken in closed session?
no,
Okay.
but that's what was reported that we all said yes and we didn't all say yes.
There is no vote ever
think-
been made in closed session. Any vote, any information that's discussed in closed session must be taken for a vote in open session. That's a fact. That's state law.
I think it was posed that, from what I remember correctly, is we are approached with this.
Yep.
Is that something you would even be in favor of considering? Because if you're not, we're not going to bring it to legal and we're not going to have spend any money on it. We're not going to take it to the plan commission. The consensus was, yes, we would be in favor of,
Having staff proceed.
correct, not in favor of what it is, just in favor of the idea, kind of the same as a TID district. Would you be in favor of it or not listening to it? I don't think we should say no to anything.
But that was posted.
However-
on an agenda item that we were going to do that, correct?
Yep.
So the public was informed. Whether they showed up or not is not the board's issue. They were informed.
And it was in closed session
You can
because
shake your
why?
head no, but that's a fact.
I just have problems moving forward with something that we even had, we're gonna give to parks and we don't know what they would or wouldn't be able to do with it.
Well, it's up to the village. I second that motion.
Are there any, do you want to do any conditions? Because the plan commission had put conditions and you didn't.
But all the
They are
conditions already
included.
been met
They're in the
and
resolution.
they're in the actual
Okay.
resolution itself.
All right. I don't think that we can take, are we allowed to
No.
take any comments from the?
Are
public?
there any further? Are there any further? Okay, in my office, Paul Lexi handles the real estate work. He's been working on this. So if I'm following your discussion, generally where things are, it would be a motion to approve this resolution. Subject to, the village and the Honaker Trust entering into further agreements. I think that is the sort of the caveat or the condition.
If we want.
Because I believe that there'll be further steps that staff and Paul will have to take. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, this is authorizing us to move to the final steps.
So
Add that to
you
your
would,
motion.
I'm sorry. So if you were to approve this resolution, it would be a motion to approve the resolution,
Mhm.
subject to the village and Honaker Trust entering into simultaneous agreements, either to be approved by the board or to be or in a form approved by the village administrator and village attorney. That results in closing.
So do you want us to read then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stipulations of the resolution?
I don't think you need to do that. I mean, as long as you approve, if the motion is to approve resolution 2025.06128, that's all you need to say. But the addition here is that you need to approve it subject to the village and Honaker Trust entering into a simultaneous exchange agreement that results in the closing of the property in a form to be approved by the village board or in a form to be approved by legal counsel and staff.
Do we have any other pictures of this property?
I do not have any others. We could bring up Google Earth, but I don't have more.
So I know some people made comments thinking we were getting the extra grassy area, and if you look at that picture, the
No.
blue square is, it's further lakefront into the woods going eastbound. Am I incorrect on that?
That is correct.
That's correct, right? So we're not, that extra grass where it says private property and a split rail fence, that would not be what we would be getting.
No,
We'd be
this-
getting all
It's all
C2,
trees.
all trees, all C2.
So why wouldn't we just flip that around and take along the road?
Because it creates a non-conforming lot, because of the way that that parcel was divided years and years and years ago. It depends on Rock Lake Road for its road frontage to make it a conforming lot, and you can't take any frontage away from it or it becomes non-conforming.
Got it.
That's what
Do we know of what the restrictions are on that lot?
I'm sorry,
Can we do anything with that lot?
it is trees and I mean, whatever. You
So
could
we
put a
can't
park
do
bench out
any-
there, you could put a picnic table there, you could, put a little walking
Do
path.
anything. We got enough room for
You
picnic tables.
cannot,
Can't cut trees. We can't
you
build
can
anything out there.
cut down dead and dying trees, you can remove dead trees that are already down.
We still got a liability in the trees and we can't use much for in there.
So we'd have to maintain those trees then.
And we gotta make sure there's nothing rotted to fall down and kill somebody.
Oh, we have to do that at our community park too.
Yeah, but it's not, we had to give up
A lot
land
more
for
trees
another
there.
land.
So for what it's worth, and we got the motion on the floor, but just for keep in mind, when it was first discussed, word pickleball came up and expansion of the park and all sorts of stuff, and none of that is actually the end result. Well, I'm saying about this parcel is what we could do there is what was
One of the key
discussed at that meeting.
So
Key point.
staff serve at the board direction. So if the board does not choose to proceed, staff will not proceed and we will be done. But if this board decides that they would like to do this land exchange, there is a motion on the table. And if it passes, then that is what we will do. I do not have the authority as your administrator to make decisions on my own. I follow the direction that you have been giving me. That is why this is here today. I've followed the steps that you have asked me to follow, and that is where this is at.
Well, we also asked you to go in front of the Parks Board to see what they thought. Whether you have to or not, they should have been informed and they should have been giving us their ideas.
So we as a board didn't tell them.
I did.
No, we said to go through the plan commission. is
No,
what-
I said
what it
parks.
was.
Well,
Well, I understand that, but the consensus was to go through the proper steps, which was through the plan commission.
Which should have been the parks too.
So,
And I look at that differently. We give the land to the parks. They are allowed to do what, once we give it to them. That's how it works. That's how I look at it. However, I did ask for additional pictures of this because it is hard for me to make a decision. I asked for ground level pictures and I asked for an overview so that I could see it.
There is the overview, the trees. I don't have a mouse, but Brian, if you could please scroll in, thank you. If you could then take and go from the word Wilson Park. Yep, now just go straight east, northeast. No, just with your cursor. Keep going into the trees. There you go. That's the area you're talking about. That we would gain. And now if you go up by that pier, this is all cattails and water. This is the area you're talking about exchanging.
also into the woods there a little bit though, based on the one plot survey.
Yeah. Very shortly.
Am I able to make an amendment to the motion through Robert's Rules of Order?
Well,
You gotta deny it.
I think you have to vote on it first, don't you?
I believe I'm able to make an amendment to that emotion and then it would.
Person making the original motion can amend it.
The vote fails.
Ramsey?
To have the vote. And it might depend on the nature of the clarification. I mean, we've also been working on what the clarification needs to be on the motion to approve this resolution. And I'm about to actually. I just sent some motion language to Clerk. Because I could tell you weren't quite following me.
I believe I can make a motion. I make an amendment to a motion. If it's seconded, then it's considered.
Can you do that when you have a motion?
I'm sorry, what do you want?
If you make a motion and
Can I-
a second, is
can-
Pete allowed to make an amended motion?
I don't think so.
You can't make you can't make an amendment, get a second.
No.
Because you haven't voted on the first one. So I guess, you know, in theory, this sounded good to me. After hearing all of the points of view tonight and not having any additional pictures, which I wanted to see because it's hard for me to tell you, looking at it, you know, it's hard for me to make a decision on this because if it is end up non-usable land, based on what types of trees are in there, which is why I kind of wanted ground level pictures so I could see what it actually looks like. And for me, I'm sorry. I don't feel comfortable making that decision without seeing that. So either I'm going to have to walk it myself and take a look or, you know,
I'm on the interactive mapping. It looks like everything that we are exchanging is all wetlands and what we're getting is.
and I understand that.
And C2, but
There was,
we can rezone, can't we?
there was also a discussion with a realtor because we had talked about possibly selling the property to them and what kind of value did they put on our property?
They basically put no value because it's not usable by anybody other than who it's
Right,
attached to.
there's no access to it.
Correct. And it's,
So there's no
it's not
value to it.
buildable. There's
The
no,
only access is through their property. Other
Is
than
that
just
true that,
trespassing.
is that true that the
Best
only
we still
access
have
is
to
through
shoot
the
my-
property, the Honaker property?
yes.
You can't access that without walking onto their property.
You can access it if you want to walk through cattails from our property, but you can't
Well, it
access
goes
it
up
on
into
ground.
hard land a little bit, doesn't it? Goes up, there is some shoreland on there.
It shows it, but I've walked parts of it. You can't really walk it.
Well, yes.
It's wet and cattails. You can't get there from the park.
All right, well, we have a motion and a second, so we have to. I looked it up on interactive mapping. And I agree with the part, it's all cattails. I understand that. Mine is, what are we getting? What does that look like? What does that look like from ground level? You know, which is why I wanted some extra pictures.
What you're getting is high and dry. So you can use it for a walking path or for park benches or for just to sit and enjoy it. You're not going to take all those trees down overnight. If
No,
they
I understand
die
that.
over time, you can remove trees that are dead. We build parks, our trails throughout our village. We just put one in over by Silver Lake last year. And it went through trees.
That doesn't show the square, it'd be just to the. I guess it'd be more east and north.
You look at that highlighted green line and then you see the white square
Right there.
And then we're adding roughly the same size.
Correct. Yes, it's a half acre. It's about the exact same size as that outlot,
And
which
it-
then is,
line represents what?
that green line is our property boundary. So we own everything that is northwest of that green line. And so you would be gaining access to more of your area that you own.
Can I ask, what is the, what would the property tax increase be to the village if we were to do this?
Based on preliminary numbers, it was around $1,000 a year. Increased tax revenues to the village.
On
Give or
top of
take a
what
little.
Be paying.
Give or take. That was based on 2023 numbers. I'd have to look at newer numbers. It would be no less than 500, probably no more than 1,500, so somewhere in there that you would gain in tax value.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at the wetlands versus the dry.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions or comments before we take a vote? Yeah.
So I want to make two clarifications. One is I looked, I believe, you can make a motion to amend, but it has to be related to the subject matter of the pending motion.
Oh, okay.
And then it will have to gain a majority vote on that motion to amend. Second housekeeping thing is again, assuming you're going to have a motion to approve this resolution, you certainly don't need to read this whole thing. You can say motion to approve resolution 2025.06-128. However, this is what I was trying to explain earlier. I think based on where you're all at, it will have to be motion to approve that resolution, subject to the village and Honaker Trust entering into a simultaneous agreement that closes the property to be either approved by the village board or to be approved by administrator.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can put a motion to make an amendment.
So long as it's related to the subject of the motion.
Yes,
What was that? Because Bill did a motion to approve and it was
Did a
seconded.
motion to approve the resolution 2025.06-128, and I think it got a second.
It did.
So the
Then
motion
it's-
the motion to amend has to be related to that.
so when I put it out there and you tell me how I'm doing, since it's the first time doing it, would be after review by Parks and Commission for acceptance and Planning Commission, since they tabled it. Which is consistent with my original comments to, shouldn't we be running this through the committees?
Believe that would be unrelated simply because I believe some of those processes have been followed, and that could be a separate motion altogether, a separate decision. For instance, if the motion fails, then it could be a motion to refer it back to Plan Commission and or Parks Commission. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I think it's related. I'm in agreement with moving forward after review by Parks and the Planning Commission.
I don't think that you can, somebody made a motion, somebody seconded it, and now you want to change the motion. I don't. You can't do that.
just looked it up, and yes, we can make an amendment.
Make a motion to amend that relates to the subject matter. So the current motion that has been seconded is to approve this resolution that approves a certified survey map.
But
Now to
Mr.
do a
Huffman
motion
should
to
have
amend
done
that, to do a motion to refer it to committees,
Motion would be to actually do that, to send, to do the certified survey map after those processes have been accomplished.
yeah,
We're not authorizing the
Yeah.
do the exchange right
That's
now.
what I was saying.
We're just authorizing the map. We're not authorizing the exchange. Oh, okay.
I was trying to add the
Yeah, but-
clarification into the resolution that it would be subject to the village and trust
Yeah, but-
entering into agreements that would come back to either the board or staff for approval and review.
So we would have to reapprove it for the land transfer then, correct?
Yes, at that time for the
Yeah, I guess
actual
that's what is
transfer.
the next steps.
Correct.
This is the next step. You just said earlier in this item, this is the first step in the process of transfer.
Right. What would happen if this did pass tonight? What do you do then?
If this does pass?
Yeah.
If this does pass, then we work with legal to finish the steps for the land exchange.
So what is the process for that? Do
So-
they go back in front of P and Z?
And
It
do we
does
pay for
not,
that?
you are given two options from Ramsey just now. One, it could come back to the board. Or two, you could give staff and legal the permission to finalize all land transfer exchange documents. So
So it
you
doesn't
could,
go back
no, it doesn't have
to P
to.
and Z.
Mm-mm.
So am I being denied my request to make a motion for amendment?
I mean, so basically, yes, a motion, well, I don't know if you're being denied, but a motion to amend will need a second and we'll need a majority vote on that motion.
So is he allowed to make that motion? I think is what he's asking.
I think it can be viewed two different ways, whether it relates to the subject matter. I mean, the motion is to approve this resolution that conditionally approves the CSM. So that is, in my opinion, that would seem to be a step separate from and different from remanding it back to commissions for review. As I understand it, one of the reasons it went to plan commission is under 62.13, the plan commission does have a statutory obligation to make that first review and recommendation back to you. Whether the plan commission thought it should bounce back to the park commission, or whether this board now feels it should run back to the park commission, those are sort of separate issues. So I think the current motion is a motion to approve the CSM and take that step. The only thing I'm trying to advise you to do is, if you're going to approve this motion to approve the resolution, it should be subject to these two parties entering into simultaneous agreements for closing to be approved by either the board or by staff and legal counsel.
So if I start the amendment, do you want to finish that piece if I tell you which end of it?
I suppose I can help you with that, yes, and but then I would really, you would need to decide who do you want it to bounce back to?
Correct.
To be approved by the village board or to be approved by the village administrator and village attorney?
Okay, and that's where I'm going with this. So I'll amend my motion to approve the resolution 2025-06 -128 to certify the survey and take this to the village administrator and staff. for
I'll
final
second that.
Um, so let me help you. Let me help you again. So it should be a motion to approve the resolution, subject to the village and trust entering into simultaneous exchange agreements that result in the closing on the exchange of these parcels to be approved by blank, to be approved by you or staff.
The village staff and the Honaker Trust
With legal.
with legal.
So that's the motion.
So moved.
And that's my second.
Can I ask what changed from when the plan commission heard this in December to what they saw last week or the week before?
The orientation of the lot,
Okay,
so that it did not become non-conforming.
so it
Per
was
their directive.
along the road?
And in the same meeting, we looked at it, Andy and myself, and Brad was not there, but it was Andy and I. We looked at it and we saw it was going to make it non-conforming, and so I did. We talked to a few of the members and let them know that, and they did not seem to have a problem with shifting the orientation, because then it didn't create a non-conforming lot. That was the direction. It cannot create a non-conforming lot.
Mhm.
So when that shift happened, we went from the grassy area to the woods.
We did, yes. I think everybody agrees we would have liked the grassy area more, but I don't know how you get around your ordinance that prohibits you from creating a non-conforming lot.
Unless it was combined.
No, because you still would not have the right road frontage.
Right, but if it was combined to an existing lot.
No, the Honackers need the road frontage on Rock Lake Road, which is the whole reason that it had to shift from the road to that other spot. Because if you take any amount of land off of Rock Lake Road for their parcel, it creates a non-conforming lot. You're not allowed to create non-conforming
I
lots.
understand. Can you not join it with an adjoining lot?
No, it,
Not our lot.
yeah, Honecker's lot would be
Right.
non-conforming. I think it requires 300 feet of road frontage, and that's what they have is 300 feet from the edge of outlot 10 to the nearest next property owner. So from there to there, that is 300 feet. You cannot remove any of that, because if you do, it becomes a non-conforming lot. That is the why.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, so I'm gonna do a roll call vote on this one. Bill Barheit,
No, absolutely not.
Angela,
Yes.
Pete,
No.
Faber, sorry,
Absolutely, yes.
Dennis. Bill,
Yes.
Ron?
Sure.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
I'm a no strictly because I did ask for additional pictures so that I could make a decision. And I don't have those to look at, so, but still motion passes 4-3. All right, number 12, Administrator, 12.1, 2025 budget update as it relates to budget funds for strategic plan, Village Hall roof replacement and Station 4 renovation.
All right, good evening. So for this one, it's two parts. The first part is the one we're on right now, which is just a quick budget update. And it's specific to the three items we're going to talk about, which is strategic plan, the Village Hall roof replacement, and Station 4 renovation. So first, what is a request for proposal for the public's edification? A request for proposal is a formal solicitation to seek bids or cost proposals from potential consultants or contractors for specific products or services, and it outlines the government's needs, project requirements, evaluation criteria, and other details ensuring fair competition and transparency in the procurement process. They can be from anything from technology solutions to construction projects or even consulting services. The competitive nature of RFPs encourages vendors to offer their best pricing and value propositions. So that is what an RFP is. There are different kinds of RFPs that you can do. For construction, you're required to have sealed bids. For services, you are not. So that is what the statute requires. So during the budget discussions and in the final approved budget, funding was approved for the three following projects. So the first one was strategic planning, 50,000 was approved out of the Central Services Fund. For Village Hall roof replacement, 80,000 was approved, and that would have come out of the Capital Projects Fund. And Station 4, 45,000 was approved, and that would come out of also the Capital Projects Fund. So for the strategic plan, if you'd like, I can go through what a strategic plan is. There's two items. So one is just telling you the budget update. So that's the budget update. That was the numbers that were authorized in the budget. And the second part is requesting permission from the board to post 1, 2, or all 3 of those RFPs. And if you'd like, I've got Brad here to go through the Village Hall roof. I have Al here to go through the Station 4 renovations, and then myself and staff to go through the strategic plan. So please let me know how you would like to proceed.
Strategic plan is the one where it's the ordinance review.
No, that's the zoning.
Okay.
So I can go through what a strategic plan is. Strategic planning is the process by which leaders of an organization, such as local government, determine what it intends to be in the future and how it will get there. The process involves developing a vision for the organization's future and determining the necessary goals, priorities, and action strategies to achieve that vision. There's a funny little quote I like, as Yogi Berra would say, if you don't know where you are going, you might end up somewhere else. So the strategic plan gives you the foresight to tell staff where the board as a whole would like to go. There are 7 of you, and you will have 7 different opinions often, sometimes, never. I don't really know. Every topic, everything we work on, you have 7 different individuals that may have different ideas of where you'd like to go. So the strategic plan serves as the community's roadmap and is used to prioritize initiatives, resources, goals, and department operations and projects. The strategic plan is a big picture document directing efforts and resources towards a clearly defined vision. It helps to identify the most important issues and areas for improvement, which allows the government to focus its resources and efforts. It guides the allocation of financial and human resources to support the implementation of the goals and the objectives. And it often involves community members in the planning process to ensure the plan reflects the needs and aspirations of the residents. So this would be probably about a 6-month process. It is very uncommon to not have a strategic plan in a larger entity. You are considered a large entity. You are almost 15,000 residents. The average size municipality in Wisconsin is much less than 10,000. So that puts you in that large category. When I go to conferences or any trainings and they break us out by small, medium, large, we are large. And so for an organization of our size, it would be really helpful for myself and staff to know what you have consensus on. Strategic plans develop consensus. They give you that roadmap. They tell us as staff What do we want to be? What do we want to look like? How should we get there? And then it's not me polling each one of you individually, trying to figure out, do I have consensus or do I not? Because you told me what your consensus is on what direction you'd like us to go.
So does this work like hand in hand with the comprehensive plan?
So your
What's
comprehensive
the
plan
difference?
and your zoning help to inform your strategic plan, and your strategic plan helps to inform those. So
Okay.
if you say you want to be Brighton and you don't want to grow and you only want large lots, well, your strategic plan would help to inform that. And then every other document after that follows it. And so, or if you say you want to be Milwaukee and you want to grow and burst out of your seams, you would tell me that too. And then your zoning and your comprehensive plan would reflect that.
So how do they how do they figure out their pricing? Do they just look at, you know, our topography and our zoning and like how do they figure out what to charge us, I guess?
So the strategic plan RFP that is developed will solicit proposals from all kinds of firms. So it'll be a consulting firm that would do it. And you will probably get proposals anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 all the way up to about $100,000. It will then be up to us to sit down and look at all those proposals and find the one that fits us best.
So they
within our budget.
basically tell us what they're gonna do for us, what's included in that price.
Within our RFP, we have outlined what we're
Yeah,
looking for.
I read it.
But then they will give you a proposal that says everything they want to give you. So sometimes they follow it and they follow right within the budget you've given them. Sometimes they don't. They want to upsell you.
But how
So-
do they put a plan or a price on something that they have no idea what we want? I guess that's my question.
That's the whole process of strategic planning. They help you to define what you want. And that's the whole plan. They know that when they come into this, they know that their job is to help you figure out what your vision, mission, and values are. And they are here to guide that discussion.
So then how do we pick if there's such a broad difference in price, right? How would you pick?
Well, you've authorized $50,000. So
Well, I understand that, but if you get a $20,000 bid and you get an $80,000 bid, that's a big, huge difference.
The
So how
biggest-
do you look at what do they show you examples of what they've done in other
Yes.
communities or, and then we make our decision based on their, I guess, product offerings for lack of a better.
Generally speaking, the difference
I don't-
between a $20,000 strategic plan and an $80,000 one is going to be the level of public input that they give you and the level of detail that they put into your
Got it.
document.
So that will all be outlined when they.
Yes.
And then we can discuss it and decide what we would like.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
in your
since-
files, you found nothing that relates to anything of this kind being done in the last 7 years?
You have never, ever done a strategic plan in this community, which is partly why some of us feel like we're spinning our wheels every day, because we're not exactly sure what direction you want to go. And there are 7 of you with 7 different ideas.
What did we have before? Might not have been a strategic plan, but it was
A
something else.
comprehensive plan,
Comprehensive plan.
which is a land use plan. It tells you how you think you want to develop it, but it doesn't tell me always what you want to put on it or how you want to get there. The strategic plan is a little different.
Dennis, do
But they
you
work
remember
together.
something where they had us, and the planning board together about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago? And they were going through all of these steps, asking for sounding boards, basically, of what each of us believe would go best over on Highway 50, on 83, and on Highway C and so forth.
Well, we did that when we put together the comprehensive plan that we currently have that expires, that was good through 2035. And then we had 11 neighborhoods and we had public hearings for each one of those neighborhoods. And we had a review of 6, 7 years ago. But when we established the neighborhoods, the people that were affected in that neighborhood came in here. We had maps and everything all over. And we made changes based on what those people wanted to do. Now we're doing it differently on that comprehensive plan. Although, as Cassandra says, we never had a strategic plan. We just outlined where it was going to be commercial development or
Right.
residential development and what impact, or what 10,000 or 15,000 square foot lots or what have
Cause I remember on the parks, we also had input on
we
it
had
too.
parks and we did the park study.
right?
Do you need a motion for this?
And then we could qualify for
To get the RFP.
loans
The
and what
grants.
have you through the parks.
So we can do one collective motion as we talk about each of these, or you could motion on each individual one, which
I
might be
think we
better.
should do each
I
individual.
would agree. So I would do a motion
I'll
on.
make I'll make a motion to approve you getting RFPs for strategic plan.
I do have, well, we gotta get a second first and then I can make it.
I'll second.
I got a question. How do we involve the people in this? How are they gonna do this?
They would
So the strategic planning consultant does that. They organize public input sessions. They usually will have some sort of a web platform where you can fill out surveys. They compile all the results. And then they put all the results into a format where then they bring it back to the village board. They present the information that they found in their public input sessions as well as through their surveys. And then you'll have a number of work sessions. Typically, there's 4 work sessions where the board will sit down and you'll take the data that they're bringing in from these public input and surveys and start to formulate what your plan should be. So it's a pretty involved process over a series of months where you'll vision what you would like to be when you grow up.
But that's after we choose which RFP we're. accepting
Correct.
When we
Right.
hire someone.
Yes.
I'd like to be able to work, make sure that we have wording in there that the Economic Development
Right.
Committee is also working in
Yeah.
concert with this whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
Absolutely.
where does that fit in at?
That is part of the
Analysis.
input sessions that they will hold. So they will make sure that they've met with that committee. That is a given.
Okay.
So
Now, on one of the things here on this page, it says, on the date of July 21st, you expect to have the virtual interviews. And I would like to, and I think the board would like to participate in that, maybe not ask.
Mm. I think we could assign,
wanna
I think we
listen
could
to-
assign one or, if Ramsey says, 1 or 2 board members
Two.
to be part of those interviews. And then you can speak to that when it comes to a meeting. Would that be okay?
yes.
Yeah, candidate.
No.
Yeah,
Right.
So
Well,
you
just doing the
can,
interviews to gather information, right?
right.
yes, you can have 2 board members participate in the interviews and I would actually really welcome that and I would really appreciate that. So if you would like to, it doesn't have to be right now,
Yeah,
but
we can do
before
it
the
when we get
interviews.
closer.
please
If
let me know.
anybody is in wanting to do that, send me an email and then we'll put it on an
Yeah, and I
agenda.
can help. Because of my history, I mean, being
Yeah.
around so long, I think I should.
Don't age yourself, Dennis.
I want to fall back to something that Dennis said, just for clarity. And that Cassandra said, so that this would be not just a one-time meeting with the EDC with this contractor, but this would be in concert all along. Since EDC meets monthly, maybe that'd be a great time, that you maybe potentially add an agenda item that, would have that contractor work in concert and conjunction.
So they may not attend all your meetings because every interaction in person costs money.
Sure.
But there will be opportunities to interact. So they may come to one meeting or they may invite you to participate in the meeting for the EDC. But they will make sure that they get the EDC's involvement.
Yeah, and it's something that the EDC could work on at their meetings to give
That's correct.
feedback back to.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure we do it concert, not just like a one-time
Yeah.
deal.
Okay, so we have a first by Brooks, second by Pulley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, Village Hall roof replacement.
All right. So on the second item, there is in the Village Hall Roof Replacement Fund, Capital Fund, it was budgeted for $80,000. The RFP that has been developed, there was a typo in the first paragraph. Thank you to Mr. Chris Krasnecki. I might butcher his last name, but he provided some feedback in an email. So that I have fixed that typo in the first paragraph. It said the wrong kind of roof. It was supposed
Yeah.
to say like a raised.
Seam.
Thank you. Say that again.
Standing seam.
Standing seam. So it now says asphalt roof and standing seam roof. Those are the correct types. It was correct elsewhere in the RFP. It was just missed in the first paragraph. We borrowed somebody else's as our template. So We did have last year an assessment of all of our roofs across the village, so every single rooftop that we own. And we asked the consultant that did the assessment to prioritize which roofs would need to be replaced first. This one was at the top of the list. So when we looked at it, the existing roof is well seasoned and in the 20-year range. There are some typical age issue items due to elemental wear and perhaps other causes. There's a good amount of granule loss. Granules are the ultraviolet protection for the waterproofing of the shingles, and various smudges, marks, and scrapes, and a couple of spots where the plywood is starting to ripple or buckle. And a few past repair areas are noticed. The roof is ready for replacement within the next couple or few years. A typical replacement cost would be $4.50 to $4.75 per square foot range for an investment somewhere between 70 and 80,000 if you went with an asphalt-based shingle. If you went with a standing seam metal roof, that's going to be considerably more, because it would require removal of old roofing down to the deck, repairing the deck if and as needed on a time and materials basis, installing ice and water shield and synthetic underlayment, installing new 24 gauge pre-finish. I don't know what all this stuff is. I don't do this for a living. And so there's a lot of pieces to putting in a standing seam metal roof, but that's why you're going to find a qualified contractor. It would also include new gutters, downspouts, and some snow rail above the gutters to make sure the snow doesn't go over the gutters. And then also we do have some issues out here in the front where the snow doesn't always go into the gutters in the wintertime. We get some ice issues. That investment is going to be in excess of $200,000. We know that going into the RFP process, but I think it is wise and prudent to get quotes for both. And so that is how the RFP is written. So quotes for both, so that you'll know, do you want to stay with the asphalt shingle roof? Yes or no? Or do you want to switch to a standing seam metal roof? Standing seam metal roofs tend to have a lot longer longevity. So when you look at replacement costs, it perhaps is a better investment, but you don't have that much saved. So that would then have to be a board decision after we get the proposals to say, which would you prefer to do? And you won't have to make that decision until after you do the capital plan, and that is by design. So you'll hear through the capital plan what roofs need to be done, how much that's going to cost, and you'll see how every single piece of machinery, every rooftop, every parking lot, everything that we own and operate, how it plays out over a 30-year time span, so you understand how to best invest your monies in capital over the long term.
So let me ask you a question though. Whether we do an asphalt or a metal roof, are we not going to be installing the ice shields?
I think the metal roof, you wouldn't need ice shield.
I think there's a paper barrier under that one where you got.
Yeah, but here on this metal roof here, it calls for an ice shield. That's why I'm asking the question.
Right,
But you would also put it on the asphalt roof,
right, the
correct?
bottom edge.
Well,
Yeah, the bottom 3 or 4 feet, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
3-foot wall.
and if we went with an asphalt roof, I don't know that the whole asphalt roof has to come off short of where the plywood is buckled. Generally purlins are put down. I could be entirely wrong on this, but that's my understanding. But the asphalt roof, I would hope we're doing a full tear off and we're not putting shingles over shingles, which shortens the life of the next layer of shingles.
No, this one would need a full tear off because of the buckling of the plywood underneath in a few spots. So you would want to correctly repair those areas so that you get the longest longevity out of that shingle, and not compromise the longevity of that shingle because you didn't do the proper prep work.
And along those lines, speaking back to Mr. Sarditsky's email that he sent was very detailed, and he showed a picture of heat loss through melting of snow, which actually probably is the root cause, if I'm not incorrect. When I read your email, that the moisture from underneath, basically that roof cavity was allowed to reach the same ambient temperature as the building space itself, which then allows for snow melting and causes that buckling. So in the RFP, I think it's behooves us to, I don't know if it's the same kind of contractor or not, maybe it's a different contractor, HVAC or insulation, but we should be addressing that as well.
Okay, so we'll make sure we address any insulation issues.
Well, I guess to get the attic proper temperature controlled for whatever that means, that and it's also for energy loss because we've apparently been losing quite a bit of energy through that particular issue.
Got it.
Well, it's usually unless it's a cathedral roof, it's an empty spot between the roof and you have the insulation down above the ceiling, so that stays cold above the
Yeah, but
insulation.
that's the email that Chris sent. If you read through that, he has pictures attached to it, shows that we have heat loss going into that space, allowing it to not be exactly
Yeah.
what you said, being that colder void.
So when you go off with your RFPs here on this roof, and you're identifying the seamless metal roof and the asphalt roof, we're gonna do new gutters and downspouts on both, not just one.
That's the board's choice.
No, but I'm saying you have it listed for the metal roof, but again, not for the asphalt roof.
You don't necessarily have to do new gutters on the asphalt. You could reuse them, although you would have to address
I was gonna
the
say,
areas
it's
of
coming
concern.
apart.
And then we did have to have our public works guys come out and address the ones on the front part of the village hall because they were falling off the building last year. So they did reattach them, but they very likely you will want to address all of your gutters, but in some cases you are able to reuse gutters when all you do is replace asphalt with asphalt.
Would we potentially be better served to do an RFP to discover our issue inside that attic space prior to, especially since you mentioned that the roof maybe has a few years left? And then once we've addressed that underlying issue, to then do RFPs for a roof, or two separate ones, add an additional RFP, which we might have to then put on a agenda item for another meeting because it wasn't talked about or posted. I don't know. But it just seems like we're going to be moving a roof on top of something that we maybe have a problem we need to make sure we get solved.
I think you can do that concurrently. We could just have somebody come out and take a look at the attic
Yeah.
and give us an analysis of
Because
what's
the
wrong.
RFP goes for you're gonna do it or not. And what you have to get it inspected first to see if it needs it.
The RFP is just simply authorizing us to collect quotes for proposals
Right.
for what it would cost to do this roof in two different fashions. And then you will then have the ability to decide, and well, concurrently, we'll get the attic looked at, of course, but you'll have the ability to decide prior to getting to budget, what would you like to do? Which path forward? Do you want to replace it with what you already have? Or do you want to change? If you want to change to something different, we need to know what that cost is going into the budget because we'll need to have the ability to budget for it. And so doing the RFP either way is a good idea to get costs so you can make a decision.
And where do we advertise for that? Because I know that we put it on our website, but where else do we put that?
So you can direct solicit and send it to whomever you ask me to, in addition to posting it. That is a very common practice to direct solicit, but also posting it.
Get the big companies.
Yeah. So you can go to, is Yellow Pages even a thing anymore? But you could open the Yellow Pages, right? Or Google for it and you can find a whole list of contractors
Maybe
that
we
do
send
roofs.
it out to our email list and say the village is looking for, utilize that. There might be. some
Could certainly
people.
do that as
Yeah.
well.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion for this one?
I'll make a motion to approve the 80,000 for the replacement or for the RFP for the Village Hall roof replacement.
Would we want to add to RFP for either or for both, or?
That's how it's written.
Sounds good.
It's looking for.
So it's just basically for going to RFP for the roof, not necessarily a dollar
Second.
amount just yet, right?
This is giving you the ability to quote for asphalt, shingle and standing seam
Right.
or metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to amend that
Is
motion?
Brian, you would know? Standing seam is the ones without the screws showing?
That's correct.
I was gonna say that standing seam is really expensive steel,
What did you call that? I can add it.
but the other one
Steel
you're talking
shake
about was cheaper.
shingle. That's like a tongue twister. Steel shakes shingle. Is it shingle?
What is the estimated cost between that and?
I think the whole point of the yard here, get today's number.
Yeah.
In my asking around, the asphalt road that's about $80,000 today. You don't need it to.
Right.
A standing seam roof, 2.5 to 3 times that, somewhere around a quarter. But longevity, long after 90% of.
So we can write the RFP to give us estimates for all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, okay, go ahead.
Then again, like Brian said, it's a steel shingle. I mean, it looks like shingles. Okay?
Yeah.
It's steel and your warranty is 3
Well,
times.
we can put that, we can add that in. That's a great
Yep.
suggestion. Thank you, Brian. Okay. Do you want to amend your motion? Because you had a dollar amount in there.
That's just for the RFP.
Mhm.
Yeah, because once the requests come in, we're gonna have to have a motion to approve whatever one X.
You, yes.
Or put
that's
it in our
correct. When
budget.
when the proposals come in, you'll have the ability to review them and decide which path you would like to take.
Okay. So, Mr. Hopkins made a motion to approve.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, Station 4 renovation.
This one I'm going to hand over to Chief. I'll briefly introduce it. During the budget discussions, we had talked about how all of our fire stations are currently on the same side of the tracks. And it's a very active rail line with about 30 trains a day going through it. And so during budget discussions, the board did give the authorization to, through the budget, to move from the Silver Lake current facility into the EMS facility across the tracks. And so I will let Chief, where did he go? There he is. I will let Chief talk further about what the different things are that we'll be looking at.
Good evening, Board. With regard to this discussion, our consideration is best delivery of service. We're best to do that with what we have to work with. The initial consideration for Station 4 renovations was based on the size of the trucks that we would possibly and potentially operate out of there. Good sized rigs that are 102 inches long or wide, 11 feet tall. They're big trucks and they're challenging to drive in certain circumstances. So the consideration was, do we put a drive-through scenario at that firehouse? Should we ever choose to operate out of it? That's another discussion in itself if we choose to go that route. The approximate cost that had come back suggested that it wasn't an inexpensive operation. And in fact, do we go to that location to provide service? What impacts that? Are we operating from the west end? Are we giving appropriate consideration to our districts? The concern has always been what happens across the railroad tracks? How do we serve that facility, that area? And the answer to that would be relocate some of our primary delivery to the west end, and that would be the old rescue building. We also have to maintain consideration to what we currently serve and the folks in the communities that we're in process of now. Numbers suggest that roughly 1,600 calls a year come out of Station 2. That's just Station 2 alone. Part of that, at least half of that, is the village of Salem Lakes alone. Station 4 currently, based on the same numbers, is roughly 400 calls a year. If you're going strictly numbers, you'd have to really evaluate where are we going to put our money and is it best allocated to where the call volume is? Is it allocated best by the potential for a disaster with the rail system? There are many questions that have to be answered as we go forward. Roughly the same amount of money it would take to put into the doors. I think we should give consideration to maintaining Station 2 for a period of time. As things change, we don't know what the numbers are going to be. We really honestly won't have a good handle on the numbers for a good solid year, I think. And based on these loose terms and numbers, we're still serving a pretty good part of that community on a regular basis. Do we discount either one? No, I don't think that we do, but I think we have to be strategic in how we spend our money. And I think it's important that we give strong consideration to maintaining what we have. One could go so far as to staff all 3 firehouses, but that involves a whole different set of projects. So in either case, one should consider probably spending $50,000 to $60,000 on whatever upgrades you're looking at. As long as we maintain Station 2, we have to give those folks reasonable living conditions. Bathroom has to be upgraded, kitchen can be upgraded, some flooring, some painting and things like that. And we can do that reasonably inexpensive. A full rehab of that building is expensive and I don't know that we're ready for that yet. Again, the numbers won't come through for a solid year. We won't have a good idea where we're at, but I do think that we have to maintain service out of there. I'll confuse that even further by saying there should be strong consideration to serving the west end of our community out of that other building. Hope that's clear as mud, but that's our feeling on it.
So at minimum for Station 4, it is recommended to do the RFP for the drive-through doors. Currently, you do not have that drive-through doors in that facility. And we budgeted 45,000 for that. So I would say at minimum, that's what you should consider. The RFP is written in an a la carte sort of fashion. So it will show you what future investment to that building could look like. So the first thing in there is the drive-through doors. The second thing in there is creating a living quarters and then paint. So that's what's all in the RFP for Station 4. But again, it's a la carte, so you can just do the doors now and do other things as the need presents itself.
That's something else. I had Al and Assistant Chief Mike and we were over at that new station we want to do, and we were talking the pluses and the minuses, and well, it's a good idea. Maybe somewhere down the road, we were talking about possibly just sticking, we could do the minimal amount, which is fix the bathrooms and some other little stuff, which isn't going to cost us much. At least get that, keep that going, and then table it for now, revisit this, like you said, like a year from now, whatever you want to go over that. That building is, the trucks are exactly 10 feet wide. The doors are only a little less than 12 feet wide. We have on our stations now are 14-foot doors and 14-foot high. That's 12. I don't know if we can get any higher in them. I mean, we can get things to fit. My opinion on the back, putting doors in the back really doesn't help us any. Because we can't double stack the trucks because the plant takes up 90% of that inside of the side. And then you got some ceiling things we have to figure out. But I would be in favor of tabling this, sticking a little bit of money into the Station 2.
But all we're doing is getting requests for proposals. We're not spending money right now.
I know, but we don't need it. If you're not going to do it for a year, numbers change.
Yeah, but we need it for budget.
I also want to add that you guys are looking to change polling locations. So I've held off on formalizing because you guys want to rent out the old Silver Lake Village Hall. So if you want to rent that out, I can no longer use it as a polling location. That is supposed to be the location. And for that, I do need handicap accessible. I need bathrooms. I need those items, but we need to figure that out now because I need time to poll the state to get the location approved.
Yeah.
Or the rental of the Silver Lake Village Hall is put on hold. I'm just throwing that out there. It all connects.
I'd rather see that just left for the Parks Department. We have any parks left here?
No. Let's not.
What do
get
you
off
think of the
tangent.
building?
We're not
No, no,
getting
no,
off,
let's
we're
not
not
get
getting off, we have a motion on the table from Mr. Faber to proceed with the RFP for Station 4 renovation.
So we talked about this, that's the only facility we could have on the west side of the railroad tracks.
Mhm.
And years ago, when we were in town, we always contracted with the village of Silver Lake. So they could cover, our territory, the town of Salem's in Sherwood Terrace, and also on the other side of Highway 50. And, so anyways, that's, it's important. And when we closed the Wilmot station, I had quite a few phone calls of people are concerned, especially with the amount of train traffic we have today. The possibility of having a train go by when you need a fire truck over there, or a rescue squad is much higher today than what years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a first and a second. All in favor for aye. Anyone opposed?
I
6-1, motion carries. I make a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,